Hello. Hi, everyone.
Hello there.
Hi, Big Amish. How are you?
Hi, Wendy, my our amazing host. I'm doing great. Thank you for
Great
having
to
me
always
again.
have you as a guest. I'm very, very glad to have you here. Um, Sorry, guys, we're a few minutes late. But yeah, wow. Okay, so let's see who's in the chat first, and then we
Yeah.
can go ahead. Um, Big Amish and I were having a little chat backstage. Rock
Yes.
Prince, how are you? Um, Good to see you. Hi, Linda. I'm glad you're here. And Alicia, how are you? Good to see you. James, I haven't seen you for so long. I'm really, really happy to see you here.
Hello, everyone.
Can you all hear? Is the mic? Sorry, I'm using Restream. So just tell me if the audio is correct. I'll put it a little bit louder. Okay, good, good. Glad to have you all here. So, all right. So we have this interview, as Begamish and I were chatting about now, with Law and Crime, and Dr. Turvey was a guest. As you mentioned, Begamish, this is all part of the plan, right?
Yes, that's my take on it because we've seen uh, Dr. Turvey, Cy Ray, Whitcomb all come out basically
Mm-hmm.
during the same time. And regardless of who you want to believe or don't believe anyone, what is clear from everyone talking is that there is a destruction of the defense team, right? People pointing fingers, evidence being concealed, not brought to the attention of uh, Brian Koberger, um, ethics violations, ineffective assistance of counsel, being tricked. All that is being said. So at the PCR level, that is the goal: is to vacate the plea, and you need evidence.
Mm-hmm.
And all of these individuals are pointing out to why there should be a vacator of the plea, meaning that should be vacated. And
Do you think Dr. Turvey is perhaps the most instrumental one in doing this? More so than the last interview we saw with Christopher Whitcomb?
yes, because he was involved with, I believe, I can't wait to see the interview, but I do believe he was involved in some aspects of at least discussions with the plea or um, on the outskirts of the plea. So his testimony or his access to information is much different than Cyray. So Cyray could have been limited to just the cast records and the like. He could have been limited to that, and that's fair. I don't know. I'm just basing it on okay. If we just take someone at their word, okay, or at least that was his expert designation. I
Ye-
believe Dr. Turvey was much more involved, and he needed information that would have been included in that 68 terabyte dump, right? Which happened weeks before the trial, in which Ann Taylor said she would be ineffective if they did not get additional time to only flip and say she was effective counsel at the colloquy. So weeks later, she says she's effective, and so does Brian Koberger. But meanwhile, Brian Koberger never saw any of the information. And I believe Dr. Turvey even said that well, yeah, I'm not sure how much information has got to BK or even his family for that matter and how it's relayed. So you do have a breakup. At least factually, it's all there because ultimately it's about BK's rights. It's not about being right or wrong between Ann Taylor, Brent Turvey, Cy Ray. It's about everything just falling apart and
Yeah.
BK not having the ability to trust any of the information. So even if information would come to BK, what was provided? Is it reliable? Was it biased? Cy Ray was biased. He said he's guilty. So how do you expect someone who believes you're guilty going to give you an unbiased report? It raises a question. And had Ann Taylor knew that, if Ann Taylor knew that before the plea and didn't tell it to BK, that's a problem. That's ineffective assistance of counsel. And if she
Yeah.
didn't know it, still, now you see Cy Ray coming out and saying it. It still affects BK's rights because he was relying on that expert to assist him at the trial level, and it was biased. So it
Yeah,
impacts.
and if an expert goes into the investigation and he already believes that the suspect is guilty, as Cyril said, then they risk falling victim to confirmation bias. So, who's to say that he was only looking for data that proved his theory and not looking for anything that contradicts what he was saying?
Yes, he could be playing both sides of the fence, but
Hmm.
still, that should be presented to BK. Did Cy Ray let him know? Did Cy Ray tell Ann Taylor, I think he's guilty, but I'll do this? Doesn't matter what's the truth. The problem
Yeah.
is it's defective no matter how you take it.
Yes.
Either Ann Taylor knew or didn't know ultimately affects Brian Koberger's rights because he needed to know that for the plea. He needs to know who, and if unbiased reports are presented to him, he has to be able to rely on it. If they were biased, they should never have been provided in the first place. And so it goes to ineffective assistance of counsel again and his Sixth Amendment rights to having effective counsel and having unbiased experts. Now, Brent Turvey also falls in that category because Ann Taylor says Turvey was speaking out in public and he was under an NDA violating ethics.
Yes. I
Again,
remember that.
so no matter how you look at it, it's a massive mess, a mess that assists Brian Koberger to vacate the plea. That's all I'm looking at. I'm not taking sides. I'm just looking at it, in my opinion, how it unfolds and helps a BK vacate the plea.
Oh, I think it is going to help him. Do you want to have a look at the video?
Oh, sure. Yes. Yes,
All
absolutely.
right. So you'll just tell me when to pause. Let me just make sure I've got this video up quickly. Sorry, guys. Be patient with me.
And be patient with me. I've been a little groggy today, so I need a little time to adjust.
I just want to see how this link is going to work here. Okay. Okay. Close that. Yeah, let me go back to the stream. Sorry, guys. I'm like a menace. Okay. Okay. I'm going to just make this full screen.
And Wendy, just so you know, on Restream, I don't think I'm getting the chat is like stuck or something. So
Yeah,
I'm
could
gonna,
be.
yeah,
Let me see if I can get this.
I'm gonna go over to YouTube and maybe access it.
Yeah, I think I have to open a new tab here and then
It's okay.
go into that. So, sorry guys, give me a second. Okay, let me look for this video that I sent you. So it was. Let me just check this. Sorry, guys. I actually have to just find this video and then I can share it. It does not work the same as StreamYard at all. Okay.
This is all new to me too.
Yeah, I was. It says. Give me a few seconds. Anyway, I don't know if you guys have seen this. Okay, let's see if I find the video this way. Sorry about that. Okay, it's this one. Let's see if I can share it that way. Sorry. There was one guy in my comment section that said I don't look too bright. It's probably right. Okay. So let's go back to that. I think I can do it that way. Right. That's better. Ray, I figured it out. Okay. All right.
So is everyone having a great day so far? I hope so. Great Friday.
Hope so. Okay, just tell me if it's playing.
I'm Donna Rotuno. Brian Koberger is jockeying to take back his guilty plea, saying it was hinged on false promises and blatant disinformation. The change of heart came after experts have publicly questioned the evidence post-plea deal. Back with me today is Dr. Brent Turvey, a crime scene analyst expert who was hired by the Koberger defense team. I think in light of the fact that Brian Koberger has filed paperwork under a post-conviction theory to withdraw his plea, I think this conversation is going to be enlightening and I can't wait to get into it. Talk to me about how you felt when you heard that Mr. Koberger had filed this petition to withdraw his plea, and what was your reaction when you first heard that news?
Well, there's a number of ways that I reacted to it, but my first initial reaction as a person, as somebody who works in the justice system and observes it, was relief. I was relieved, mainly because of the way of what he said in his filing. It was some important facts and details came out that really haven't been covered at all. I mean, I want to take a moment to talk to you like a person, like you're a human being. I'm a human, you're a human. We both have human emotions and have human responses to these things. And it's been, the word I would use is disgusting. It's been disgusting the way that most of the.
You guys can all hear everything, right? So you can see it properly?
Yeah, no, it's great.
Okay, you're good with the chat. Sorry about that, guys. Okay.
Most of the topics around this case have been talked about and shared and even ruminated and theorized over. And I'm grateful to be in this space with you because I know you're not like that. You're more of a facts and law, and that's how I prefer to meet this case because it's more productive that way. So really great relief.
For sure.
Primarily because so many things happen in that plea that people have only speculated about and continue to speculate about. And the first one is that that no one seems to be saying out loud, which is that Ann Taylor and her legal team were fired. They were just fired across the board. There's no getting away from that, what happened there.
When you say fired, you mean that when he filed his petition, he did it on his own. So therefore, he obviously didn't ask them to do it. And then he asked for other counsel to be appointed to him. So is that what you're referring to when you say fired?
I don't know how we can see it any other way. That's the other problem.
Interesting.
No, I agree. That's just what I'm. No, that's what I'm asking. I agree with that. I just want to be clear so people understand. Yeah,
exactly.
Wow.
For those of us who work these kinds of.
Sorry, tell me just to pause if you want.
Yeah, it raises an interesting question regarding the trick that BK was saying. She could have been fired right before the plea that morning.
Oh, really?
Potentially. I'm just raising that question. And then it actually adds more to this. And that might be the hitting smoking gun in which potentially, again, I am just totally speculating, but potentially that's what's raised now. I didn't even think about that because in order to delay a case, in my opinion, sometimes attorneys will basically step down or the client fires you. The client could always fire you, right? So if BK said, I terminate I terminate you as my counsel. I'll go ahead and do it, but I terminate you. And so does she acknowledge it? She would have a duty to inform the court, but we don't know what plea negotiations were happening. And Ann Taylor probably had these discussions saying, if I cannot be effective counsel, I have to withdraw. And our defense team has to withdraw as counsel because we can't represent them. And the Judge Hippler may have said, I'm not going to let you out of the case. You're going to finish this and wrap it up. And that also
seems likely that he would do that, correct? And
What's
so
that?
she's fired, but she's still working behind the scenes.
Yeah, no, that's one aspect of it. But yes, you could always assist as long as the client wants you to. Right. And that's my feeling is she has been working behind the scenes. Because how do you get all this to come out just before the PCR being filed? You have Turvey coming out, Cyray, Whitcomb. I just, that to me is how it was handled. Because don't forget how Ann Taylor was handled by the judge, not very kindly. And nor was the evidence, and nor were the rights of Brian Kohlberger ultimately. And I mean, Brent Turvey has been speaking about the DNA and the different signatures for months now, and the crime scene lacking any DNA, or how you would challenge what skin cells they had, the AI algorithm of Othram. I mean, you have numerous violations of due process being raised, and yet Judge Hippler never allowed the FBI analysts or their subcontractors like Othram to be questioned about their manipulation of evidence or to question the integrity of the evidence.
Yeah.
The standards never allowed that because
that is outrageous that they never had to answer regarding their methods of finding the DNA.
Right, and that's because of the parallel proceedings. The judge, if the judge would have opened the door, the case would have been over because we would have found out that BK was identified by the feds long before the trash pool.
Oh, yes. But I think people knew, you could put two and two together. The only question a lot of people had was, why did the feds not go and arrest him themselves? I think that was a question right in the beginning when I started questioning this case is we knew that they were following them on the way home, right? Him and his father. But it
Yes.
never made sense as to if they stopped them. Well, they didn't stop them, but there were those two traffic stops, and the feds were overhead watching them travel all the way back from Washington to Pennsylvania. Then my thought was at least, okay, if you had him in your sights, why did you guys not make the arrest? Okay, I don't know how it works over there in the same way that you guys do.
Yeah.
But it just seemed strange. Why did they not arrest him?
That's a good question. It's the dual sovereigns. You have the federal sovereign. They could charge BK as well independently, but why didn't they? That's your question. Because we do know that there was a federal grand jury impaneled in which they got
Yes.
and issued subpoenas to get information. So we know there's a federal grand jury that was impaneled, and so you need a federal crime for that, and you need targets for that. So who was it? Was it just BK? Others? So something is being hidden.
Definitely, in my opinion, why would they go to such lengths if it was just for BK?
Yes.
Doesn't seem above board to say that it in that way.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it raises those questions. And why didn't they arrest him since they were pushing this? Well, if they arrested him, then the door would have been open to what Ann Taylor was suggesting in her motions to compel and motions to suppress certain evidence. And that
Hmm.
is that the feds were actually the ones in charge and investigating BK from the very beginning. But in order to use a state sovereign to issue charges, you need them to determine independently probable cause. Because if it's not independent, you then have a violation of the Constitution. And the case basically breaks down. You
Hmm.
cannot use the state or local law enforcement as your proxy. The feds can't. But that's what they were doing. But that's why they were so controlling of evidence and allowing the establishment of independent probable cause, according to Judge Hippler, because that was his ruling, that the state determined independently probable cause. So even though the feds were involved, he gave that independence to the state court, which is fine on one hand, right? But we know what really happened here. It was the feds controlling. It wasn't Thompson
Yes.
and local MPD doing this. They
Hmm.
had joint task force members on there who were federal gatekeepers. They would get the information and then basically allow the breakdown of that information, the data points, so that the state can create independent probable cause. I say independent in air quotes because it was never
Hmm.
independent. It was just how it had to be created, the illusion of independence. That's what we
Okay.
had.
Wow. All right, let's hear what he has to say here, because he's. I haven't watched the whole interview, by the way, everyone. So let's see. Let's see how what he's going to say. I'm actually very surprised that this woman from Fox News is open to interviewing him at all, right?
Yes, 100%. I'm just looking in the chat so we could interplay here. Oh, uh, yeah, love and other habits. Good point. Yeah, the timing, all this. Yeah, is it
Mm.
coincidental? I mean, I don't believe
Yes.
so. And I think a lot of you realize it's not, right? And so
Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right, Kelly. That we're in that place for a long time, long before any of this ever happened, long before the crime itself happened.
yes, yes, 100% in my opinion.
Yeah, our
So,
opinion. We don't know. We don't
yes,
know.
you're right.
We have to
That
say
is
we
our,
don't know before we get in lawsuits. All
yeah,
right, let's watch what he says.
Cases. I mean, I do investigative cases for law enforcement. I do cases for prosecutors, and then I also do cases for defense attorneys and civil attorneys, and then I also do post-conviction cases, quite a few of them, to review things done after the conviction has already occurred. And I think it's just interesting how people are tripping over themselves to try to describe this in another way, to try to give some leeway to what's happening or create some sort of intrigue or mystery about it. Koberger laid it out pretty clearly what the issues were. And that's so my sense is relief that he is actually able to speak for himself, as opposed to being suppressed by Ann Taylor. Ann Taylor no longer holds the privilege. The privilege is his, and he gets to decide what he wants to say. And that has not been true since the plea. And that's the other thing. It goes, if you want, we can go right into what the plea is and what he claims if you want. But so my first reaction was relief, and now it seems like the real work might actually get done. Those are my sentiments.
Well, before I definitely want to get into the plea, but before we do that, let me ask you this. So, for the regular person who has no exposure to the criminal justice system, who hasn't sat in courtrooms the way you have or I have, we watch Bryan Kohberger sit in a court, right? And we watch the judge ask Bryan Kohberger a series of questions that he responded to. And we also saw that Bryan Kohberger filled out a piece of paper that basically, said, I am pleading guilty of my own free will, and, I'm satisfied with my counsel. So talk to me a little bit about how now, he's going to say, I want to withdraw all of this. And let's kind of go through that in terms of the plea. And, because to me, Bryan Kohberger does not seem like a dumb guy, right? Like, we're seeing his filings, we're seeing what he's written. And I'm kind of wondering how we reconcile this idea that he is an intelligent person. He was college educated. He was a teacher. He was a teacher's assistant. He was taking classes. And now, now we're hearing that he has written things to the court that are intelligent. So talk to me about how we reconcile this idea that he got up before a court, said all these things, and now he's saying, wait, this wasn't right. Like, why did he wait until now to bring those things up rather than say, I'm not going to plead guilty in the first place?
I'll just say is this: anybody who's questioning this process has obviously never been a criminal defendant charged with murder, and certainly not charged with capital murder. So second guessing this is kind of, it's one of those things that I find really unpalatable, because I've done this. I've worked probably 25, 30 death penalty cases in my career and testified in many of them. And what attorneys tell clients to do is shut up, don't make a face, don't respond, don't react, and above all, don't talk. Look straight ahead or take notes. That's the instruction given to every client, every defense client ever. All right? Whether or not they take that advice is something else. So from the perspective of Ann Taylor, from her legal team, he's a good client, doing what he's told, trying to maintain that stoicism, which cannot be judged. Because as you can see from this case, as I said at the outset of this interview, the response of the public has really been our worst selves. We've been our worst selves in responding to this, smacking our chops over the deaths of these young girls, making light, making jokes, making fake AI videos to purport a side or the other. It's been very grotesque. It's been a menagerie of the grotesque, in my opinion. He has been a good client. He has been doing what he's told. He has not been talking, as he's been told. He's been letting Ann Taylor and her legal team talk for him. And as you and I both know, up until the weekend before the plea, it was all, I'm innocent. I want to take this to trial. I want to take this to court. Now, the question is, why would he then get up there? Well, first of all, he didn't allocute. That's the first thing. The second thing, and it's clear from his filing, is he was told two things. One, you need to confess or to get a plea to take the death penalty off the table. That's what he was told by his attorneys.
Yeah.
Bad advice across the board, but that was the advice he was given. Then the second thing that he was told, according to his filing, was that it's okay to lie about whether or not you did it, because that will set legal things in motion, and then we will start to do appeals and we'll start to do other things around that. But this will give us time. This is a time-saving device.
If every woman in your friend group is on GLP-1 shots and shrinking, and you're the only one who hasn't caved, give me 60 seconds before you do.
That's what's heavily implied in his filing.
Do you want me to pause there?
Sure. So,
Well, Well, as he mentions, Brian was told not to talk.
Yes. So that is silence, which is, I mean, that is exactly what should be happening. He shouldn't be talking because anything he says, it's just as if now he's saying it in a filing in the PCR. But think about it. Turvey is saying things in public. He writes a book about it. Cy Ray writes a book, talks about the case. So you have all these individuals, and Wickham as well, in a different format, but he does the same. BK has to be very careful in what he says. And so he has to strictly just follow what is required to basically vacate that plea. And he's laying it out. And Turvey's certainly telling you exactly how important what he's been saying and how it affected the case and where he was tricked so far, right? You have to lie, which we know. If you're innocent and you want to take a plea anyway, and we know that over 5% of cases get 95% of cases get convictions through pleas, right? So, and there's some innocent people who are tied up in that. But we know just on statistics that there are going to be individuals who have to lie in order to get that plea. And
Absolutely.
he's raising that. He's saying that the attorney told him specifically, which, even if you disagree, if you have to take that plea, you have to lie, because that's the only way the state is going to accept it, is you have to basically comply and say you did X, or these plead guilty to the charges, right? And you don't have to allocute, but you have to plead guilty. So
Yes.
that is clear. And he's feigned it. According to Turvey, he feigned his intent. He's feigned his compliance with the plea. He did that in order to get the case over with, to fight another day. That's what he's saying. And that's the PCR. So if you believe Ann Taylor, he's raised, whether you believe Ann Taylor or not, he did do that. BK did plea and accept those terms. And now he's saying why. So he kept his mouth shut. And you could imagine if he opened his mouth before, how it would be used. Because there's a lot of information he didn't know.
Mhm.
So
I think anything he said would have been used against him, and he knew
yes,
that.
it would. That's absolutely right. You're 100% right on that. It would be used. So either he knew
Even
about it
as
before.
Turvey's saying, he's no dummy. I think he knew what was going on right from the beginning, and he wasn't falling into that trap.
He certainly wasn't falling into that trap. He knew what he was up against. The death penalty was there. The state already had sanctioned that death squad. That firing squad was already prepared. I mean, and that weighing in back of your mind, what do you do? Do you take the risk knowing what was happening? Right? And
Well, isn't
knowing
it
that,
easier to vacate the plea than to try and go through a series of appeals?
well, in my opinion, based on this case, yes, because if he would have went to trial, right? If he would have went to trial, just like we're hearing now, were you satisfied with your counsel? Did you obtain all the discovery that you needed, during the colloquy that was happening? And you're satisfied with that. Well, if you would have went to trial, it implies all that anyway. You have the 68 terabytes. You're going to trial. You can't argue after the loss because you basically consented to the 68 terabyte unindexed dump as being plausible to go through. You're taking the risk in order to go to trial. You could try it. You could try and argue afterwards, but it's a hard sell because the judge. Don't forget what Judge Hippler would have done during the trial. He would have done exactly what we're talking about to ensure that trial gets locked in and a conviction because he was going to allow all the evidence in, but limit, in my opinion, limit Ann Taylor from going and looking behind that federal firewall because he already ruled on it and in prior motions. And there's a way for a judge, in my opinion, to look at a jury, or once you overrule somebody, or if you make certain comments to counsel, that they better be careful. All these little nuances that judges know on how to make inferences that a jury would look at and view the defense in a different light. No matter what we think or positive about Ann Taylor and BK, if the jury becomes tainted by the judge,
Mhm.
you know, whether by his mannerisms, his rulings, jests, whatever you want to call it, the jury.
We saw that with the public already,
Yeah.
even before he was in front of any kind of jury. What the
Yeah.
public has
Yeah,
scrutinized him. Yeah.
he was doing it already to the public, and you saw that. He was also sending messages to Ann Taylor. Every time she would, that's why looking at the record, Ann Taylor has laid out on the record all the issues that she was trying to obtain, and providing a reasonable basis for it. Just wasn't out of the blue. Oh, I need to find out the analyst for the the IgG, or how did the Frankenstein DNA get created? All this information is reasonable, especially when you look at the report to support those motions. So it's not only one factually saying, look, we have reasonable belief, because how did the amplification occur, right, with the DNA? Just one of them. And what standards did they use? What was the algorithm? That's just common sense that you should be able to get it because it's new technology being used. So how the hell do you know? It's not like you could look it up or go to an expert and tell me about Othram. It doesn't exist because Othram is the
Not there.
unicorn,
Mhm.
right? So that's how you know it's totally unfair, and the rulings were unfair. So
much so. Okay, let's see what he says. Yeah.
Filing. So why would he do it? One, because he was told to, and then two, he was told it would not be of legal significance. Now, whether or not you and I would have believed that, if I had been in the room in that conversation, I would have said, "What the f are you talking about? You don't tell people to suborn perjury. Knock that off right now." That's what I would have done. But I wasn't in the room. I have no, and I happen to know now who was in the room, and I know exactly what was said. And it comports with the meeting that Ann Taylor had with us, which caused me to get up and walk out, which is that she basically said I couldn't get him to take the plea initially. I couldn't get him to do it. So what did I do? I went and I enlisted his family. I told him he had to do it. I gave him a horror show of what death row was going to be like. I told him what it was going to be like if he was, just in there as a regular inmate, not on death row. And it took more than a day and a half, maybe 2 days, to get the family to convince him to take the plea. So why did he do it? I mean, in my head, I've seen this kind of scenario play out before, but only with extremely unethical attorneys who don't want to go to trial for whatever reason.
I'm wondering why you wouldn't want to go to trial. Like, this was not a financial situation, right? The Kobergers were not paying for his legal defense. The taxpayers of the state of Idaho were paying, so their bills were being paid. They work for a public defender's office, which obviously they are paid. So, and this is not a case where, I don't know, I think the majority of the public were expecting anybody to win. So I guess my question is, what do you really have to lose? And yeah, okay, the death penalty is one area of conversation, right? We can talk about the death penalty, but I know, and hopefully Brian Koberger understood that just because the state asks for the death penalty doesn't mean if you lose at trial, they're going to impose it on you, right? That is something that a jury decides after the fact, and you can present mitigating evidence and things of that nature, and your mother can get up and talk about how awful it would be to know that her son is being put to death. And so there are ways to fight against the death penalty. So that was not a foregone conclusion if he were to go to trial and lose. So I guess I'm wondering, like, what do you think? I've always said as a lawyer, I will try anything, right? I am not in the business of trying to convince clients to take pleas. I, of course, have conversations with clients when offers are made to them, because that is our ethical obligation to do so. We must convey any offers made to clients. But in 26 years of doing this, I have never twisted anybody's arm. And I say to them, you live with the consequence of your decision. You want me to go in there and fight for you? I'll fight for you. So what do you think, what do you think they had to lose here by going to trial? I mean, they fought pretty hard throughout the pendency of the case. They obviously hired experts to try to put them in a position that was better at trial. So I'm just wondering, like, what do you think it was ultimately that she just didn't want to fight? Because frankly, the fight that was going on, as long as it was a fight. The trial aspect of it isn't really that difficult once you're prepared. So I'm just wondering what you think happened here.
I have some speculations, but first let me just say, Donna, I wish you had been there. I wish you had been in the room. I wish you had given that advice. That was not, he was not getting that advice. That's the first thing. So one, he had no advocates for him in that room. He had only people that wanted him to plea out because they didn't want to go to trial. Two, he didn't have all the information about all the exculpatory evidence that we had found. He didn't know. He didn't know what the defense team had uncovered. And it's not me by myself. None of this stuff, according to his filing and according to other things that I'm aware of, he wasn't provided any of the defense reports. He didn't even know I existed until I went on the podcast.
There's your answer.
And we know that because he told somebody that, or how do we know that? Because if that's the case, that's horrific.
Something that I have not disclosed yet, which I think is important to know, and that is that after I did Queens of Custody and your podcast, the family reached out to me like, "Who the hell are you, and what are you doing on this case? And why haven't we heard of all this stuff before?" And then I immediately okay, well, let's talk. And then I handed them off to people who had legal minds, which I do not. So I was like, sure. I feel your pain. I understand what you're saying. The next step has to be legal steps that I can't be involved in. So you need to go do that. There are things that have to happen that I can't be a part of, and that's what happened. So I got told by the family directly that they had not received that stuff.
I mean, that's
the next thing
that's troubling. That's troubling.
Very troubling. It gets.
They bring it up right there. He had no knowledge of that. No one other habits. Yeah, do we forget that she had 58? I think, wasn't it 98 terabytes of information dumped on her?
68.
Oh, I'm not sure if it was 58, 68, or 9. Well, anyway,
regardless,
one terabyte.
It would take a team years to go through that. Many years.
Yeah, you're right.
Unbelievable.
It's crazy. But he's saying here that he had no clue.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, you could see how powerful the PCR motion is then.
Mm-hmm.
And even if you think Turvey's lying, which I don't think he is, but even if you would think he's lying, it's problematic regardless, because he's raising all these issues. I'm assuming he knows a little bit more, and maybe he's in touch with them, with the family, and maybe he's going to provide an affidavit. I mean, we talked about independently how BK could adopt these experts' findings or and methods used in their books and public statements and convert them into affidavits. Mm-hmm. But they could certainly, and I haven't. They could certainly participate as non-experts, so not under Rule 702, where they're retained, but under 602. So they could provide actual testimony that helps them without the rigors or the state trying to stop them, saying you're not retained. His comments now, and I don't know about Turvey, but at least publicly when he's giving his opinions, he's not been retained to our knowledge, and there shouldn't be a reason to retain him. I think he would based on what he's saying, it sounds like he would want to assist Brian.
It seems that way.
So, yeah, he could provide information by affidavit as well as basically a hybrid witness. He's giving you his opinion as an expert of what happened in the breakdown that he's factually familiar with. He's been giving facts and he's giving you an opinion. But he's also been there during the destruction of the defense team or not being provided information. He knows that the client didn't even know about his report. And so now he's telling you all that. So he's also a fact witness.
He said
So,
there he's not an attorney and he's not familiar with legal matters.
yeah, but he knows, well, that's, he's
You
not
know,
an
and I just
attorney.
found it interesting that he said that.
Yeah, he's not an attorney, but he knows it's issue spotting. Basically, it's problem solving, right? But
Yeah.
he likes to get entangled in these issues, it seems, because why else would he be there? Um, and he's going to be a witness. That's what it's suggesting. Everything he's saying is supportive of the PCR,
hmm
right?
And
And so,
just to go off a little bit, so I know a lot of people have said that he's lying, right? Because he wasn't actually he wasn't physically present at the crime scene. But I mean, he did review everything, all the documents, um,
yeah, he doesn't have to be
photos.
at the
Yeah.
crime scene. Yeah, but go ahead. I'm sorry.
As far as I looked there, um, he did look at some 3D laser scans and crime scene sketches. He also looked at the evidence logs.
They
And
destroyed the house. They destroyed the
well,
house.
this is a big thing. This is a big thing because now you raise a very, very good point there. How is he supposed to go and analyze the crime scene if he's brought in without a crime scene?
Yes, you're limited to what is
He isn't.
provided to you.
Yeah.
As an expert, it's like a it's like AI. You're adding in information, and you're going to get whatever you put in. It's kind of what you're going to get out analyzed. Well, if you're restricting Dr. Turvey from specific information that he needs to to evaluate, right? He could evaluate it on what you give him, but would it have been better if he had the actual crime scene? Of course, there's no doubt that
Yeah.
that's the case. So he was limited. Again, that affects Brian Koberger's rights. Why it was the destruction of the house? That's a whole separate issue we didn't even get into. That in itself harms BK's Sixth Amendment rights because if Turvey, I guess is he going to get into whatever he gets? The fact that he did not have the ability to review the crime scene,
Yeah.
problematic. It's a due process violation.
This is there was the lady's channel. I don't know her name off the top of my head now, but um, the FBI got somebody to do advanced 3D laser scans, and they were creating a digital model of the house. And this was for the
That's
jury
right.
to look at during trial, right? So, so they're involved.
Yeah, and think about that. If you remember the OJ case,
Mhm.
that jury walked the property, both
Yeah.
both crime scenes. The one at the one at the house where there was blood, and then the home of uh,
Nicole Brown.
of Nicole.
Is
Yeah,
it?
I'm sorry, a bad day, but Nicole. Yeah,
It's okay.
they walked the crime scene. They got intimate with it, walked through the wall, walked areas so you could listen to acoustics. You could see what you could hear. You could see how close it would have been for
Mhm.
whoever Dylan alleged to have seen to come by your nose to nose. And what would you see if you were in Dylan's shoes? Let's dim
Yeah.
the light, see what you could see. All that to
Yeah,
determine
and if you've ever
veracity.
seen any of those videos, this is the thing now with young college students in today's lives, they take pictures and they don't only take pictures, they take TikToks and videos of everything. So that's not scrubbed from the internet. And there was a video I was looking at the other day, and it was unbelievable how loud that sound was of, I don't know who was coming up and down the stairs, but it was all of them. They were they were in that house and they were taking TikTok videos, and it was loud. You can actually hear somebody stomping up those stairs.
Yes, the acoustics of, and I mean, it's not a well-built house. I mean, this is an older home,
Yes.
so and it's used for dorms. I mean, basically, not the university's dorms, but basically it's housing. So you're not going to get the most satisfactory housing code, building code applications there, but it
Yeah.
clearly impacts what you're pointing out.
And
Clearly impacts.
Kelly said in her work, she's a private investigator. She's seen crime scenes cordoned off for years. Wow.
Okay.
Yeah, Kelly, you're 100% right.
Yes, 100%. You don't touch it, you don't disturb it because ultimately you want the jury. That's who's going to be making a decision. But
So
also your
yeah.
experts. So not only that, the expert who, the most pivotal expert in the case, was thwarted from having that
We've
ability.
seen that here as well, Kelly. So when I used to work at the court many years back, I'm not an attorney, of course, you can see that. But I used to work with inquests, and there was a crime here, more than one that I've seen, but there's one in particular that happened just, I think it was just north of Joburg Central. And that house was, nobody ever lived in it. So somebody went in and they murdered the entire family, the mother, the father, and the children. To this day, that house is still standing, right? Nobody lives in it. Nobody's allowed on the property. And I'm talking about 20 years ago. That house is still standing. Nobody destroyed it. So the fact that they destroyed this house is mind blowing.
Yeah, given the gravity of what they would be doing, it just you're harming a jury from actually analyzing the most pivotal element of the case is the house. And what was it used for? It's not just a crime scene, right? But you're looking at the crime scene, but you're also becoming intimate. How did what relationship did these roommates have? Because why were they on different floors and understanding
So
the situation,
it's
the
a very
layout? Yeah.
tricky, it's a very tricky layout, that house, because there were pieces added on afterwards, and it's not a simple plan house in that
Yeah,
way.
but you if you had the ability to walk through it, you would understand why someone would want the top floor as opposed to the lower floor. What would what would it be? Why would you want the lower floor? Right? I'm just saying you those questions would come through your mind as a juror, let alone the public. We have interests as well. Like I thinking about that. But as a juror, you would want to know, well, why would someone want this lower floor? That's where you enter from. And how is it locked? The sliding door, same issue. Is it frail? Can someone just access it? You destroy it, now you're left with whatever testimony's coming out. But if you were able to walk through it and you see that the lock doesn't even work,
Well, that goes with that charge, the burglary charge as well.
yes. Yeah, you have
So
the burglary charge, you're
yeah,
right.
you've got that burglary charge. So how you prove that he burgled the house without the house, without being able to see?
Right. That's raised the question, right? So, and I'm just saying for those, if it was a party house, again, I'm just speculating. For those who believe Brian Koberger did this, what if it was a party? What if he was invited in? I'm just
Mhm.
saying that the speculation gets addressed if the jury had that house, So whatever questions they had in their mind could be solved. They could be put to rest, right, to reach a reasonable doubt, one way or the other. I doubt this, or I credit this. I understand what Dylan was saying, or I find this is all BS. How does someone commit, 4 unalivings in whatever 12 minutes, however it came out to, whatever their timeline is, and then but going through the type of lighting they had at that time, and then realizing what blood splatter was there, and saying, wait a second, if someone was attacked in this room and you're
Yeah.
carrying a bloody knife, wouldn't it leave? Like, they would be able to see this doesn't make sense. Something else happened here. Something else was moved. Something was cleaned, maybe. Whatever it is. These are all questions of reasonable doubt that they, the jury, in this case, there's no jury, obviously, a plea, but that didn't exist. So going to trial with a recreated, I remember that, whatever that house they made, a little model they made, but
Oh, yeah, that's
that was gonna be introduced as evidence. Imagine the jury looking at it now, as opposed to walking through it. The difference is mountainous. It's immense, especially if you're trying to protect the rights of Brian Kohberger. But if you're not looking to protect those rights, that house, that little model house in those laser pictures, whatever they did,
yeah.
certainly helps because you don't have
Yeah,
the
if you saw that reconstruction that woman did, it's not even accurate at all. Definitely not.
But again, I just want to point out the inaccuracy Judge Hippler didn't care about. He allows it in, but he'll tell you you could cross-examine, but the damage would already be done. If you allow that type of tainted, unreliable information, evidence, right? Even though technically it's not evidence, it's a model of a house, but it is because that's what the jury's going to be looking at.
Hmm.
They're going to hear testimony of the theories of the prosecution. And on the other hand, the defense was limited in what information they could obtain to discount the FBI cast and the cell phone tower records. I mean, cell
Yeah.
tower records, um, and all that, the IGG, you name it. So you see what the problem is. The judge says, "Oh, I'll allow everything in," but once it's in, he's also going to favor certain evidence. We know that. He's already done it, and he's also going to restrict cross-examination. And then the jury's going to pick up on what the judge is doing and say, wait a second, if the judge is finding Ann Taylor and her team being, conspiracy theorists, I don't think he would say that openly in court, but he would instruct Ann Taylor, be careful. I think you're overstepping your bounds. He would give these little comments that he's
Hmm.
allowed to because it's regarding questioning. That's just my opinion on how this would have been unfolding because he wants the case over. And he would have wanted it to go to trial potentially, because, but he also knows that all the eyes of the world would have been on him. So
Yeah,
it would have
that's
been
true.
magnified. So he's like, I don't want this. I don't want to be able to keep doing this. But who was pushing him? I just want to add one more thing and we'll go into it. Don't discount Josh Hurwitz's involvement.
Oh
Josh
yes,
Hurwitz,
that was a good point you brought up. Yes.
yeah. Josh Hurwitz, just in my opinion, so he was the U.S. Attorney General for the state of Idaho. Before he resigns and becomes special prosecutor in February 13th, I think, approximately, days before the February 19th orders, I believe, which it's just my opinion, because he's not involved in the case, he could have interactions with Judge Hippler. And I believe that happened. That's just my opinion. I believe he had interactions, whether he met with him a cup of coffee in his chambers, and he could have interactions because he's not the prosecutor. He's not a state prosecutor, and he's not involved in the case directly, right? He then
Right.
becomes directly involved after, but he could have these interactions because, and guess what he would be discussing during those interactions? The importance of whatever he's trying to, whatever was being concealed, as we know a lot of the evidence. But those kind of discussions could have happened. Should they have happened? No, in my opinion, because he's looking to interfere in the case. I'm not saying it did happen, but I believe there was probably some interactions. Just like I believe Josh Hurwitz or his members of his office were involved in presenting grand jury testimony in the state grand jury. Because do you really think Thompson and they? I don't think we don't know because grand jury testimony and those transcripts are sealed. They're confidential. You'd have to.
What would he actually benefit out of that, if you could explain to everyone?
Well, the benefit is that you have someone other than Thompson presenting the evidence to the grand jury, and he would present. You could present grand jury evidence that the state is not privy to, and we would never know about it. So the PCA, the state PCA, we know about it, but do we know? And I'm speculating, but it can happen, and it does happen, where others present evidence unrelated to the state prosecution directly, but who have the ability to present and digest that information and present it to the grand jury to assist them. So there are times where it would be allowed to have a federal prosecutor come in, present evidence that is sealed in federal grand juries, right? Presented to a state grand jury. And that information has to stay sealed. And the grand jury can never talk about that if they're following that path. So if it's under national security methods, and that information gets protected. I don't know if that happened or not. I'm just simply suggesting that is a possibility. And it suggests to me that Josh Hurwitz or his office played a role in the state grand jury, and then after, before the February 19th, 2025 orders, definitely Josh Hurwitz was involved. We know he was involved because he was appointed special prosecutor on February 13th, I believe, in 2025. So there's a lot there. A lot of this is speculation. It's just my opinion. But knowing the type of evidence that is used in this case and has been hidden, it suggests to me that the grand jury had more information presented to it. Could be wrong, but it suggests that.
All right, let's watch. We've got about. Let's just check. That's good.
Worse. It's way worse than you can possibly imagine. Way worse than I even worried about. I always game out the worst case scenarios, and then I sort of prepare for them, hope for the best, plan for the worst kind of deal. And it's way worse. The family has not spoken yet because they're frightened out of their minds about what's going to happen the next time they speak. The vultures will descend, the legal consequences. They've been told to be quiet for this whole time, and they've also done the same thing. Notice Bryan Kohberger did not allocute because he couldn't, because he didn't know what happened. His family has not spoken out other than the sister giving one interview. And even that, after that, she's now a little gun shy, but they're trying to talk, but they really don't have the facility to do that. They don't trust anybody, and they shouldn't. But Kohberger himself in his filing makes this very real and says, I didn't know any of this stuff. I wasn't being told anything. I wasn't being given good advice. And I was told the opposite of some of the things that are occurring right now. And he is, as any good client does, has held his water this entire time, because the person who speaks for him is Ann Taylor. And in lockup, he had no ability. Well, in lockup, he was even more limited by what he could say and who he could say it to. Now, I'll give you one other piece of information that I learned from the Koberger family. She hasn't spoken to him since the plea. So she's in court representing him without even talking to him.
The Nigerian prince is no longer an issue for us. Here's how Huntress saved my ass, or our ass. I worked with a critical infrastructure company that was getting a lot of fishing,
Sorry.
a lot.
What
And
was the last
it's
part that
just-
Turvey just said? I missed that.
Can you
is it
imagine?
possible-
So
that?
let me.
Yeah,
As
I
any
just
good client does, has held his water this entire time.
like
Because
20
the person
seconds.
who speaks for him is Ann Taylor. And in
If you
lockup,
could.
he couldn't, he
Again?
had no ability. Well, in lockup, he was even
Yeah.
more limited by what he could say and who
Yeah,
he could say
that's
it
fine.
to. Now, I'll give you one other piece of information that I learned from the Koberger family. She hasn't spoken to him since the plea. So she's in court representing him without even talking to him.
Interesting.
Wow.
Can you
Wow.
imagine
So
that
let me.
scenario?
No,
So the
no,
the
I
questions you're
can't.
asking are really for Ann Kober. Why didn't you share this exculpatory material? And why aren't you talking to your client?
Yeah, I mean that just makes no sense to me. And when I look at this, and I want to be
He
really
was
clear so
fired
that
at
people
that point.
that
It
are
makes sense to
listening
me.
and watching
In my
understand.
little brain, it makes sense to me, but
Yeah.
we can speculate
Well,
as to
sure,
why.
sure.
Is that what
Well,
you're
and when I
saying?
look at this, and I want people who are listening or watching to understand, there is a very big difference between the atrocities and the horrific things that happen.
Yeah, that's
How are you
interesting.
saying?
That's interesting because Turvey raised it before when she was fired, but he doesn't say when she was fired. We could speculate. Did it happen before the plea, right at the plea? But yet she was forced to actually go ahead by Judge Hippler because the judge could force you to finish the job. Might be improper to do so, but if she had to make a decision, right? She probably, if I cannot be effective counsel, I have to step down as well. I don't know if that was discussed, but sometimes attorneys would do that. They would step down rather than their client taking the plea immediately, during that day, or they'll just say, I'm not going to proceed as counsel. There's irreconcilable differences. I don't, whatever the case may be, but attorneys can't step down. They could be held in contempt. There's different things judges could do to force your hand a little bit, but ultimately, did Brian Koberger fire her and when? That's critical. And what he said at the end is she hasn't spoken to him since the plea suggests exactly that. So there's no way Ann Taylor, in my opinion, I don't think there's not a discussion with Ann Taylor and BK happening. And if it didn't happen, right, it's because other things are already been set in motion. I don't believe BK was just left in limbo. That I don't believe. So there's certain inconsistencies here that I'm having a hard time. But regardless,
A lot.
of the situation, it affects BK's Sixth Amendment rights. It is ineffective assistance to counsel, no matter how we look at it. And how Ann Taylor was pressured into it because the judge already knew. This is the importance. The Judge Hippler already knew that Ann Taylor has said weeks before that she would be ineffective as counsel if no postponement was granted because of the 68 terabyte unindexed dump. Judge Hippler knew that, yet accepted that she was effective counsel a few weeks later. It's an impossibility. The plea is defective. Just structurally, it's defective because you have a reasonable basis to believe that what Ann Taylor is saying is feigned in order to get the plea done. And who's pressuring her? It's the trial, going to trial unprepared and with exculpatory evidence in there, most likely, that you can't find, and going to trial creates an impossibility, right? Creates to be effective. You cannot be effective under those circumstances. I think it's clear. Judge Hippler knew that at the time, but yet accepted her colloquy and then Brian's colloquy, who certainly didn't understand any of the reports that were there, according to Turvey, so he could believe it or not. But just understand, it's not it's the structure of the plea. You have to have some a basis for believing what is being said is true. Judge Hippler knew that Ann Taylor is feigning her statement that she's effective and that she received all the discovery. Well, she may have received all the discovery, but she doesn't know about exactly what's in it. So you don't know what discovery you received or not because it's unindexed. You can't.
There's no way for her to go through this
Right,
entire
right.
discovery either.
Yeah, the same thing. Yes. And the judge denied it. He just didn't deny Ann Taylor's motion. He denied BK's right to a fundamental fairness, a fair trial because of it. And
Yeah,
Josh
we're
Hurwitz,
still going to put up that link with the QR code, guys. Just keep a lookout for that.
yeah, I just wanted to point out in federal court under Rule 16, that massive unindexed dump is illegal to do that. It's unlawful.
Of course.
But yet in state court, it was allowed. So there's another process issue. Oh, regarding the just quick on the petition, it has to go to a judicial council. I don't want to raise issues of actually trying to interfere with a proceeding. I don't think any of us want it, but it could go to a judicial council that oversees the judicial integrity. So that's where it's going to go. I had to research a little bit more, and knowing what happened to the Steve G's. Yeah, so you don't want to interfere with an ongoing case,
No.
but certainly there's a judicial council that oversees the integrity of conflicts with judges. That there it could be sent. What they do with it is a whole other issue, but at least we could present it there. So that's how we're going to present that petition.
Okay, let's play.
Happened to these 4 young college students and the court process. And so, everybody out there is talking about how awful this is for the families to have to relive this, and this is coming back. And it is. It's awful. It's awful that it ever happened in the first place. But I think every person of every family member would want to make sure that whoever was put behind bars for this is actually the person who did it. And so, I've always
say
thought
that's generally true. But I won't just speak out on this very issue because it's one of the things that disgusts me the most. I've never seen a family try to sell their daughter's story like this before, ever. Going to crime con,
This was the good part when we were talking about last night. I want you to see this. We've got about 30 minutes, so we're going to just try and get through this interview pretty quick. Sorry, guys. So I might skip ahead on parts, but I wanted you to see this. This was a great part. It goes back to what we were talking about yesterday. And I found it fascinating that he even brought it up.
Was put behind bars for this is actually the person who did it. And so,
I've
always
say
thought
that's generally true, but I won't just speak out on this very issue because it's one of the things that disgusts me the most. I've never seen a family try to sell their daughter's story like this before, ever. Going to crime con, trying to get different documentary deals. I'm disgusted by that. I wouldn't even think to do that as an expert. I have access to everything. I'll talk to you and we'll have a professional conversation, but not for money.
Sure.
And certainly I wouldn't, anybody who's out there trying to sell a story for money, that's grotesque.
And and I'm not going to judge what people do when they're put in the most horrific situations. I mean, obviously we can have personal opinions on it, but in terms of just being, and again, you have to remember that these are people that are talking to one side, right? They're talking to the prosecutors. They're looking at what the prosecutors are showing them. They're believing, what they hear. But prosecutors sit down with family members prior to pleas and talking about strength of evidence, and they do that in terms of actual facts or physical exhibits or things like that. That might be a little bit different. But I do think that from a practical standpoint, even people who it's very difficult to relive this. I would think that even at some point, your logical brain would take over and you would say, okay, if this really isn't the guy, then we want to make sure that we find the guy. But now let me ask you this question, because here's the practical side of this. This is a very difficult thing to overcome for Bryan Kohberger, right? Taking back a plea, putting yourself in a position to actually have a trial and to be able to plead not guilty. This is a legal burden that is very high. And so I'm wondering where you think this goes next for him. Do you think legally he has enough to go into the court and say, you know what, my lawyer was ineffective and didn't do a good job, and the legal standard's high, and I'm just wondering because the courts give a lot of deference to lawyers saying that was strategic, they made a decision, they decided not to do this. Now, it's a little different when you're talking about a plea versus a trial that went bad.
You're absolutely correct. It's a very high and very difficult legal burden for anyone to overcome. And this is not a regular case. It's a case with exceptional circumstances. The first issue is he didn't allocute. That's the first thing that always sticks out to me. It really bothered me that he didn't allocute, and that caused a lot of problems.
Same,
because that's supposed to happen. But let's take a step back and ask ourselves what we don't know. Who was the NBC Dateline leak? Wasn't me.
Correct.
It wasn't. The Ada County Sheriff's Department's investigating Ann Taylor's office. That would have been, and the special master who would do the investigation knew before the plea who it was, and they put that on file and they sealed it. Bryan Kohberger doesn't know who that leak was.
Well, I didn't know that.
It hurt him badly. So he should know. If Ann Taylor knows, and she definitely knows, she would have to know.
Sorry, I
because
just
she's part
want
of
to hear that part again.
Sealed material. She would have, and ask ourselves what we don't know. Who was the NBC Dateline leak? Wasn't me.
Correct.
It wasn't. The Ada County Sheriff's Department's investigating Ann Taylor's office.
Was it Siren?
That would have been, and the special master who would do the investigation knew before the plea who it was, and they put that on file and they sealed it. Bryan Kohberger doesn't know who that leak was. It didn't help him. It hurt him badly.
Wow.
So he should know. If Ann Taylor knows, and she definitely knows, she would have to know because she's part of that sealed material. She would have to have reviewed it. She certainly didn't pass that along to Kohberger. So that's a problem. That's the first little hurdle there that's going to contextualize why he wasn't looped in and why he was coerced into taking this deal and why he was told to lie, why he was told to perjure himself. And again, this is something that people do all the time under the stress and duress of a defense attorney telling him, I'm not taking this
just
trial.
real quick.
For what is it, like a third? 20.
Sorry.
So he said there was a special master, which is fine, but ultimately the special master basically makes findings. Judge Hippler oversees it, and he has to adopt it or make changes, whatever it is. I never even knew about this, that it actually occurred before the plea. Certainly, it sounds like BK didn't know about it. And what were those findings? I mean, that clearly impacts his ability to make a determination of whether to proceed a trial or take that plea. There's no doubt about it.
Of course.
So a tainted jury, I mean, that goes right to that issue. So he would want to know that.
I wish all the people that keep asking, but why would he take a guilty plea? Please watch this. Wow.
Well, yeah. Well, why would he take it? Look what we're going through. It's so tortuous just going through what's happening, and we don't even know what's going on. If he is because he's in protective custody unit, he doesn't have access to all this information. And what was really being relayed to him, we don't know. But what we do know, based on this just to kind of wrap it up, Thompson didn't believe BK was telling the truth, right? And he says that was the reason they didn't want him to allocute, because he would lie. So if he would lie, then Judge Hippler knew he would lie as well when he was giving the colloquy and the no allocution.
Yeah.
So that
How can you expect him to be truthful when he's saying yes 4 times?
Yeah,
Can't have it that way.
You can't have it, and that was something you raised from the very beginning. You can't have it both ways. So if Thompson knew it, Judge Hippler knew it. We know Ann Taylor was conflicted as well because she went from saying she was ineffective to effective, and there's no way anyone could go through 68 terabytes. It's just impossible. So
No.
Judge Hippler knew that. So Judge Hippler knew during that plea that Ann Taylor was also feigning truth,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then you have Hippler's own conflicts, and that is he was overseeing the investigation of what we just heard from Turvey. So the leaks investigation. And I mean, this is mind blowing. What were the findings? So that was actually done, according to Turvey, concluded before the plea. And that's why he would want him to waive that. So this is even more coercion on BK by the judge who is overseeing that investigation. And from the sounds of it, BK didn't know about it. Very troubling. And then you have Steve G saying that Hippler was involved in the plea, was pushing the plea negotiations.
Mm-hmm.
Again, you can't do that. You have to be a neutral judge, a neutral arbiter of the facts. And he wasn't a referee. He was part of the game. So all of that goes to the structure of the plea not being based on truth. There was all this deception or trickery, as BK correctly said. That's why this eventually just breaks down and gets vacated. The plea gets vacated based on everything we're hearing. So that's how I'll leave it. I'm sorry.
No.
29-30% of all of the people who are exonerated by the Innocence Project basically confessed and took a plea deal at the urgence of their defense attorney because they were frightened they were going to lose a trial. That's a third. That's not a joke. That's something we have to think about how our legal system works. The next thing is that if this, I really appreciate that Judge Hippler appeared on paper, at least, to be taking this seriously by accepting the filing and then appointing him a new attorney. I don't know. It concerns me that it's a small town attorney that's got a 1-star rate. It concerns me a bit who the attorney is, but maybe he's better than we know. And maybe he's got death experience that we don't know about. So that's the next part. It's not just about the legal hurdles. It's about the confidence and quality of your representation, right?
He's right.
But the other thing is that it's the next step that has to happen in the process. You've done this before, I'm certain. And I don't know whether you ever worked with Innocence Networks before, but I have through my entire career. In fact, I started working with the Innocence Project. My first big case, high profile case, was the West Memphis case. And I worked directly with the Innocence Project out of Cardozo Law in that case. And the process and the metrics and the intake ability of a Innocence Project is dependent upon all the other appeals being denied or completed, those processes completed. So in terms of it being a stepping stone towards other legal avenues, you have to knock them down one at a time, right? One thing at a time. You can't just skip to the end, right? So
exactly.
I see it as a big legal hurdle. I fear that Ann Taylor is going to be in a lot more trouble than she thinks because the communications that she had with everyone are documented. They're all documented. So
That's
all that
great.
stuff is going to come out. She no longer holds the
BK
privilege.
wins.
Koberger does. And if he gets his day in court, a hearing, which I worry that he won't, then all that stuff could come in. All those communications with family members and Koberger himself.
100%.
Can't
Which he
wait.
would want to have come out about the nature and extent
And that's
of
what
the
we're talking
coercion
about,
to
an
him and his family
affidavit
by
from
the
her.
attorney team.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We're not living in the old days where it's somebody's word. We don't take people at their word anymore because we can't. We have digital evidence we can use, text messages, video calls, video chats. The very evidence that we collected, we should have all collected in this case and disclosed initially, which took years to disclose, is the very evidence that would be presented in this court, in this type of hearing. So I'm not as pessimistic as you are, but I am realistic, which is I know what the hurdles are. And as you said, Mr. Koberger is not an idiot either. So for him to put this on the table tells me that he's ready to go. And I don't think that his legal team is prepared for what he's going to present.
Well, and I think to your point about if we just start back with the original Dateline leak, I mean, if that comes back, that came from his own lawyers, I mean, right there, you put him in a position where he was never
Or one of his
defended
experts
properly.
at the direction of the attorney.
There it is.
Right? And not just the attorney team, but also you got 3 attorneys and their assistants, and then you've also got, kind of a rogue defense expert right now going out there saying contrary things, And so we don't know. All we know is police think it came from the defense, and I know who it wasn't.
If that's the case,
Oh,
I mean,
that's
that
what
is
he's
just,
saying, right?
crazy.
Yeah.
Here he says it, gives it away right there.
Yep. Rogue, yes.
Oh,
So, yeah, because Cyrus playing both sides of the fence.
and he was.
Right.
Yeah. He's got direct contact with the Gonsalves family now. Even they have his private number.
He's a new family member now.
He
He's
is.
going to help.
Yeah, he told them on Brian Enson's show that he's going to leave his phone number so they can call him anytime they want.
Well, don't forget the lawsuit. Cyray's statements helped the G's because if he did it, they could keep pursuing the case against WSU, which I believe there's going to be a big attempt to stay the proceedings. So Turvey basically will support that it was BK in order to pass certain hurdles to get the rest of this discovery, which I'm sure they're against WSU. WSU is going to say, wait a second, hold on, see how this PCR plays out. Doesn't matter what Cyray says and all this evidence. So this is interesting. So you see how the G's are using Cyray to advance their civil case.
I know.
So that's what that's all about. That's why they're all friendly.
That's why they're panicking and going on every possible station. And I think Brian Ensign is a conduit for them because he's pretty much, I think he was the one that set them up with Cyray directly. So why now, all of a sudden? Right?
Yeah. Yes. 100%. That's what it's suggesting, because there's no reason for him to do that. But also, whatever the G's are saying things that actually even help Brian Koberger on his PCR. So even Cyray's statements, right, of saying, I have this evidence or I've seen this evidence. Well, how did you see this evidence? Right? If it inculpates, if it shows that Brian Koberger did the crimes, there's also a possibility that it shows he didn't do it. But it opens the door that there's evidence that's not been seen by others, including Brian Koberger, even knowing about it, which again helps vacate the plea, because the plea is not based on information that he needed to make an evaluation of whether to accept the plea or go to trial. He didn't have that knowledge, but somehow Cyray does. Does Turvey have it? Turvey's disputing what Cyray's saying, but the point is, it doesn't matter, because if Cyray's saying it, whether he's lying or not, suggests if it's true, you should be able to get that information. And that information has never been provided to BK or to Turvey. Now, it raises a question. How did he get that information? Or is there information that was shown by the feds to certain people in violation of BK's right to confront that evidence? That's what it's suggesting. And it violates his rights. So you vacate the plea again on that. But all this, the whole plea and all this information coming out and being, whether someone's telling the truth or not, ultimately affects BK's ability to take a plea based on fundamental fairness. Was he able to give true statements during that colloquy when he didn't have all the information, or when your defense team totally is infighting with each other and someone leaking information that would affect your ability to go to trial? And you also heard Cyray say, If the evidence was admissible, which the Judge Hippler said he would admit, it's just your ability to cross-examine and what limitations. He said 10 out of 10 juries would have convicted him.
Yeah, he did.
So there's a lot to pull out there. Ultimately, it all affects BK's rights. It's just a cluster F. I mean, that's what you're seeing here. It's a massive cluster F.
Wow.
Now, let's talk about the evidence that they do believe, right, that they had against Koberger from this whole time. And I know we talked about it last time you were on. I know it's part of Christopher Whitcomb's Broken Plea book. But talk to me again about, they basically found Brian Koberger based on the DNA that they got from the IgG DNA testing on the knife sheath. And I know that part of the big contention here is that knife sheath, the chain of custody wasn't proper, where it was found versus where it was in photos, all of those things. So talk to us again about really, because that really was the only piece of evidence they had other than the description of a vehicle, right? They didn't really have anything else. So that's what led them to Brian Koberger. So talk to me again about that and then what the issues were with that chain of custody, because I think it's important for people to remember that while they're listening today.
All right, so two things. One is that we don't know. As I'm sitting here today, I cannot confirm to you by any forensic metric or by any judicial testimony or any unsworn testimony, anything like that. I cannot attest to you that I know for sure how Brian Koberger became a suspect. What I do know is at every opportunity, there was deflection, there was dissembling, and there was withholding by law enforcement about how that exactly happened. At one point, you have a probable cause statement saying it was from an informant. And then at one point, it's the IgG. And then you have the experts in DNA being fired on both sides. I mean, it's just like nobody was getting the answers that they wanted, and people were getting terminated. It's one of the weirdest cases ever. This was an issue that should have been resolved with testimony under oath and documentation provided by the state. They have yet to provide that clearly, in my opinion. So I cannot tell you that. Yeah. And the fact that I can't tell you that should tell you that they're still, faffing about it to try to create. They're searching for a narrative still, I think.
And in terms of what you were able to review,
confront the
do you
evidence.
know if you were given access to all of the evidence, or were you given access to certain pieces of evidence? How do you know that what Ann Taylor allowed you to look at was actually everything she had?
I'm smiling because I really love this question from prosecutors or attorneys when I'm on the stand. So did you look at everything? And the answer to that, there's only one answer to that is, how can I possibly know the answer to that?
Yeah.
Well,
I couldn't
sure.
know if I've seen everything.
But
I can tell you this. Ann Taylor gave experts like myself access to a OneDrive on Google Drive that was called Expert One or whatever. And anytime you wanted to access it, you had to log in, put in the password. That would send her an email, and she would send you a text message with a verification code. Okay, so pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
And I have a problem with any of that. What I do know is I thought I was given, I asked for certain things. I make a list of things that I asked for. It's a pro forma list I ask for in every case. And so I do that. And then we go to Idaho to do the evidence viewing, which I do in almost every case that I can. I do an evidence viewing to see what they got, to check chains of custody, to check, like I was just in a case in Washington. It was a double homicide. And I had an item, and no fault of anybody. This was just an innocent mistake. Somebody collected an item, and it said stun gun on it, right? I open up the bag. It's a flashlight, not a stun gun. There's no stun gun in there. Okay? This was just a mistake. Okay? And I wouldn't, it will get mentioned, but it's not, there isn't a lot of other mistakes around that. Do you know what I mean? So it was an error.
Got it. Yeah, of course.
Somebody thought it was a stun gun, and that's how they labeled it. And, they got a new system. They're working on this particular location. It's all, I'm not out for blood. I just want to know what happened. In this case, I went there.
Sure.
And there were two sets of evidence. One is the evidence that the law enforcement collected. And it was the mattress from Ethan and the knife sheath that was collected. Both of them have falsified chains of custody. Both of them, it's not just a knife sheath, it's a couple other things.
This is what I was
and
talking
many of the
about.
other items have correct chains of custody on them, with multiple people signing them.
Well, before he finishes, I'm just so the issue with Ethan, the hair clump, this is the issue with
Yeah.
Turvey and Ray being disputed. This is the critical point about evidence being withheld and who actually is withholding it. Just because the FBI did one hair analysis, DNA analysis, and ignores the rest, or is being hidden, again, violates. It's a confrontation clause issue. You don't have the ability to challenge that evidence because it's not being tested and it's not being provided, or at least it's being disputed. Was there more than one hair, or how many hairs? And I remember Turvey saying that in other interviews there was more, the clump of hair, or certainly more than one hair, and Ray saying something different. So I just wanted to point out that's the issue that they're having, and ultimately it impacts BK's Sixth Amendment rights as well as Fifth Amendment.
Just to ask, was it a strand or was it a clump of hair?
Well, that's what's in dispute. But either way, the FBI analyzed one hair, and because that hair turned out not to be BK, I think we believe they said, at least it's assumed that they did not do any more testing, but we don't know that because you're not allowed to go and question those federal analysts or their contractors. So we don't really know that. That's the problem. And that's the type of information that BK is entitled to, or should have been entitled to, except for what Judge Hippler did in being that federal firewall, not allowing Ann Taylor to look behind and get that. That's the problem. But all of this is coming up again on the PCR. And in my opinion, it's a plan. All this is a plan because you're having these fighting occurring between experts. One believing BK was guilty, showing bias, and you have Brent Turvey, who's not really even getting into the issue, but certainly raises doubt as to whether there was sufficient evidence to actually convict Brian. So, and he talks about the signatures, right? Being, like he said that before about the signatures on the chain of custody, manipulating, being an obstruction to justice when you have signatures that can't be of different people that are exactly the same signature. So there's a lot there. All of this supports BK not being provided certain fundamental fairness in every aspect, from representation to expert reliance on reports, on judges' decisions, on defense counsel's conduct. Certainly at the plea negotiations, there were all structural issues in accepting that plea because the judge knew there were feigned statements contained in the colloquy. Absolutely. Had to. Sorry.
Okay, no problem.
So we know that they know how to do it correctly, and it's not improper, it's illegal. It's a falsification of evidence. It's actually tampering with evidence. That would be the charge. And also false swearing. You can't lie. It's a sworn document that you're filling out. So it's not like
of course.
Oops, I slipped and fell and filled it out for everybody wrong. No. That's not what happened. How did I know whether or not I had received everything from Ann Taylor? I can tell you that I didn't. Because when I got to the bed frame that Ann Taylor's team had forced the police to collect before they destroyed the house, along with many other bloody items that the police did not want to check, did not want to collect, I found the hair on it, in the side of them. I'm like, what is going on here? This looks like a palm print on the side, and then there's all this hair there. Whose is this? And I look at it, it's Ethan's, the bed frame. It's white with wooden slats. And I'm like, what's this? And they're like, oh, that's the hair. Don't worry about that. We'll talk to you about that later. So we go back and we talk about it later, and they disclosed to me new autopsy photos that they hadn't given to me before. And other photographs that they'd taken of that, defense photographs that they had taken of the house before it was demolished that they had not given to me. So they were playing their cards very close to the vest in terms of sharing material, even with me, which I found to be, I let them know that was not okay. You got to share with me everything because I anticipate being on stand.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm going to get this question from a very smart prosecutor named Donna, who's going to ask me, how do you know you've seen everything? and I'm going to have to throw you under the
Right,
bus,
yeah.
and I'll do it.
That's right. That's right. Say sorry.
Wow,
I
yeah,
I
there you
didn't
go.
know that
Bring
answer.
little
They
wild here on a
filed
different
so
topic.
many pretrial motions here. There was a lot of pretrial litigation in this case. And
Yeah.
I don't remember any pretrial litigation dealing with chains of custody and whether or not certain items should be used, right? I think they did do it on the knife sheath, right? But I don't know if they did it on anything else.
They didn't know until like a month. No, it was like maybe a few weeks before the plea, because it got brought. One of the investigators brought a question to my attention, which led us down this rabbit hole. And I'm like, oh my God, you're right. Because I don't think like that. I don't think that people are lying. But I also think as a scientist, which is that if I see something wrong in one spot, I know I got to look in the other spots too. I can't just now accept it without question. So you're always supposed to be checking change of custody. And I'd love to take credit for finding everything, but I didn't. I'm the forensic scientist though. So if an investigator brings me a piece of evidence and asks me about it, then I give my opinion, then that becomes evidence. And then it causes us to look at other things. And the change of custody were all falsified on those as well.
I mean, that would have been an amazing pretrial motion, because then you put that out there, you show the weakness, and then you put the police officers on the stand and they have to answer to this. And, I'm still trying cases. I did a jury last week and I had a police officer admit to me that, yes, evidence helps. Well, gee, go figure. Yes, it does. And so it's amazing. Yeah, it was such an amazing answer. And so, I look at this and I think to myself, these are defense dreams, right? These types of motions, to be able to put this out there and possibly not only cut through evidence, but if you cut through enough evidence that the prosecution can't use, and if a judge tosses it out, or even if the judge doesn't toss it out, you're preserving all these rights on appeal. It just is amazing to me that, given all the other work that they did, and maybe you're right, maybe this comes down to the fact that she realized she was going to have some issues with regard to these leaks, and thought, we better get out of this case as quickly as we can. And if that's the case, that is an injustice to everyone in this case, not only Brian Kohberger, but everyone.
I will submit to you that the misconduct goes further than just Ann Taylor. It goes to Becca Barlow, it goes to the other attorney, and it goes to their forensic psychologist, who was behaving in a way that is completely improper. And certainly that was my experience with.
Oh, listen what he's going to say now. I didn't hear this part.
Okay. I never heard it. The sound, what happened?
These guys in the chat are laughing about something else. The woman, Big Amish, I'm gonna have to put him onto you guys.
With her.
Oh wow.
Oh, I'm looking.
But also it was the experience of Mr. Kohberger. She was there, instead of in her role as an evaluator, she was doing all kinds of other things that she shouldn't be doing. And I've worked so many death penalty cases. The lines are so very clear about what your role is, what you're supposed to do, what you're not supposed to do, the types of communication that you have, difference between treatment and diagnosis, which is a therapeutic position, and then assessment of mental faculty for a forensic assessment, a forensic position. These two areas are in conflict, and you can't have the same person doing both. And so in this case, it was the lines were so blurred for everybody, myself not included, because I've done this so many times. I protect myself very carefully because I anticipate testimony and I anticipate having to answer questions under oath. And I alone can be held accountable, whereas somebody who's not going to testify, or a lawyer, will not be held to account the same way. So I agree with you. It's a travesty, but I think what I think people need to understand from this is that it is far worse than most people understand. The conduct that was engaged in by the defense team, the conduct that was engaged in by the person who made the leak, depending on who that is, the lack of transparency of the defense team to Mr. Kohberger, and all the other allegations of being coerced. I mean, he's not going to make that allegation unless he has the evidence. And if she's communicating with him over text messages, well, guess what?
Right, exactly. And the real travesty, beyond, obviously locking up somebody if you don't have the proof, but the real travesty too is if let's say that the judge says, you know what, Mr. Kohberger, we're going to let you withdraw your plea. We're going to start this over from the beginning. I mean, the expense alone to the taxpayer to have to do this again would be horrible. I mean, lawyers take oaths, and if you can't trust that your own lawyer is going to do what's best for you, or at least put you in a position where you make the decision, right? Here's all the
Oh,
evidence.
Big Amish, I
Here's
have to
Dr.
stop
Turvey's
here.
report.
Somebody's okay, Kelly.
Yeah,
Her
what's that?
ADHD brain wants a visual of Big Amish. You're gonna have to send us a picture because they keep asking when are we gonna be on camera. I can't be on camera now. I have to look nice
Well,
first. What's Big
I like
Amish?
my privacy for now. We'll see eventually, maybe
Have to
in
grow out.
shadow.
Sure. I've never even seen a picture.
I'll
of
be
Big Amish.
mysterious.
He's super secretive. Maybe he's somebody well known and we don't know this. Who are you really, Big
Mystique.
Amish? Tell us.
It's the mystique is Bluebird. I love the fact that the mystique is impacting your ability. You're making me laugh here, but I'm blushing as well.
What's a visual? What's a visual? You're gonna have to show them who you really are. They're gonna be surprised.
Just think of my calm voice.
They watch them all go now tonight and try and do a voice comparison to everyone they know.
Yes. I could be Ray.
No, you don't sound like Ray. Who does Big Amish sound like? Sorry. No wonder I've got people in the comments telling me I don't seem too bright. Not in this chat, but on my other post.
Why? That's absurd.
Yeah, no, I had, oh gosh, they're kind of arguing with me because you know how it is. I can just laugh at them.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. Oh, I'm looking at the chat now. Bloober. I'll show me.
The Quaker
show
Oats
you
guy.
what I learned.
No. Okay. Hi, Jethro.
Yes. Hey, Jethro.
The Quaker
Well,
Oats.
a lot to unpack there, but it would be great to see the plea vacated for all these reasons. Wow, we got a lot of information from Turvey today. That Ann Taylor was fired. That's a big one. 2, the leaks investigation concluded, and there was a report concluded prior to the plea. That's also huge. I mean, I didn't know it. Maybe others knew it. I didn't.
No.
And then everything else about the family being witnesses that he and we knew that from BK's affidavit, but now I think it's pretty clear. And if they're calling in, just so everyone, it's my understanding
So
that
his family would have been there when the plea deal was signed?
no, not necessarily, but the plea negotiations. So if there were calls to the through the Idaho State Department of Corrections and Ann Taylor's on it, so that's all gets recorded. That from the Idaho state of Idaho has that. So they were on the phone together, so the family could give testimony regarding that phone call, but also the state has that recorded, so they could just turn that over or request it and get
Is
that
this
as well.
why the Gonsalves family is constantly taking a shot at them? Because I think now, especially that they found out, I know they mentioned somewhere that it was an outrage that his family was in on it. So
Yeah, you're right. The other day, you're right. Yes, they're saying how they're trying to, saying, oh, well, they're family members. Of course, they're family members. Okay, yeah, they're going to have a bias, but the conversation is the conversation. And if you don't want to believe them, that's why I raised this question. That those phone calls to Brian, what they were talking about, are recorded by the state of Idaho through the Department of Corrections. Those phone calls are all recorded. So if Ann Taylor's on that phone call with the family members and BK, That's all recorded. That's the best evidence. So even if you don't want to believe the family members, which you should, or at least give some credit, the recording's going to be there to corroborate it. Much more corroboration than Dylan Mortensen had in her identification. So yeah, this to me is incredible evidence. It's the recording of that those phone calls. That is going to be evidence, and that's going to be requested eventually, no doubt, in my mind, if that's how it happened. Because are you able to bring in all the family members in a room in a protective custody unit somehow?
Yeah.
Maybe get arranged, maybe, in my opinion, maybe, but you would have to, that warden would have to want to help you out. Usually it's going to be limited, and I forgot how many, and just coordinating that could be problematic. So,
Sorry, I'm laughing at Kelly in the chat. You just read that last comment. Sorry, Big Amish.
let me see what she said here. Oh,
Kelly, please. You're killing me.
Let's see. I don't know if the chat is caught up on my end here. Let's see.
It
Maybe
says,
that's a good
I
thing.
can't read this without laughing. I can't. This chat is wild.
It says go right now. I see the last chat I see here is Jethro, prison
No,
guard.
just go up, Sister Bluebird. Read that.
Oh. G has had things of being. Okay. Yes. Oh my God.
I can't. Some of these comments are killing me. Are you serious?
Oh. Yes. No, we have a good chat going. This is great.
This has turned into a great show.
Well, we should laugh. Laughter's the best.
Oh wow! Hi,
need it.
Amy. I can't even type. Some of these comments are killing me. I need a tissue. Oh wow! Oh, freaking these people! Oh, you guys are the best. Oh
Yes.
wow!
That's going wild. Bluebird's going crazy here. Amy needs to give Bluebird another cup of coffee.
Oh.
Set her off the edge.
Oh gosh, jeez! I can't.
Yes, it is Friday. Now I'm seeing that
Oh,
here.
wow. You can imagine them losing their minds. He does kind of remind me of somebody who, excuse my English, I'm thinking in another language now again. He does remind me of somebody who would be quite comfortable in a jail, like a mob boss. Really.
Unbelievable. Yeah, he's unbelievable. He's
Keep it coming, guys. Oh, I can't. All right, let's see what they're saying here. Gosh. Keep it coming. Oh, wow.
Here's everybody else's findings. Here's what we've discovered. And at the end of the day, they're offering to take the death penalty off the table. Do you want it or not based on the evidence? That's one thing, right? And there's a lot of people who I think should go to trial that sometimes don't because they don't want to take the risk. And that's a decision that clients make. But that is completely different than being put in a position where you're not told about pieces of evidence, or you're not told about strength of evidence, or you're not told about the way experts view evidence. That's a completely separate conversation.
Yes. So to your first point, let's talk about the money, because that's been covered a lot. And I think it's important for people to understand that the death penalty is expensive. It's one of the reasons why many states stop doing it. Because when you are working a case and you're working, now let me give you full disclosure. My contract was for about $25,000. That's about $10,000 more than I normally make on a given case. All right. And that's disclosing a lot because most experts don't like to talk about money. if I worked only for the prosecution, I'd be able to charge between $150 and $200,000 per case. I don't do that. I work for either side. The money is not what's important to me. Most of the money is not going to have a lot of money will be spent by the defense, but most of the money will be spent by the state, all right, to try to make their case. I have not seen cases spend this much money in a long time, and this much money for so little result. The money shouldn't even be the conversation. The conversation should be, how did we spend this much money and we still don't have answers from the prosecution, or we have overstated, overcompetent evidence? And I can tell you it's because they basically, handed the investigation and the forensics over to the FBI and let them do it, and just kind of like, well, we don't really know anything about that. We'll let you do it. And the FBI were overconfident and wrote reports that said one thing and then had to testify in a way that reduced their confidence about the car, about the DNA, about how people were found, about the cell tower stuff. I mean, it's all just too disgusting. Again, it's disgusting for me to spend this amount of money and not have straight answers from anybody on the state side. Everybody having to reduce themselves. They took this very 100% posture of guilt, and then you get them under oath, and all of a sudden it's 70%, maybe 80%. I don't know. So there is the money issue. But the money issue, when you are morally certain that the death penalty is the right thing for your state, it's going to cost you, because we do not put people to death in this country when we think that they might be innocent. All right? That's a rule. I mean, we don't kill innocent people, right? We can agree with that, I hope. We don't want to kill innocent people.
You would think.
In the search for truth, resources will be expended, not just money, but time and effort and emotion.
Sorry, you were saying, Big Amish?
Oh, no. I was just agreeing that, you don't put innocent people to death, but that's exactly where, Hitler was pushing this, because allowing the evidence Turvey's talking about, where unreliability, he's pointing out the state's problems. And rather than the judge protecting the integrity of the case and BK's rights, which he is required to do, he just says, basically, we'll allow it all in, and you could cross-examine it. And we know that would be restricted anyway. So basically, it's a Hobson's choice. You go in, there's no choice really to go forward under these circumstances, and knowing what the judge is going to be doing, and there's a death penalty attached to it, leaves no choice but to accept the plea, in my opinion. Other people might disagree, but I totally understand, where this is all going. And the amount of money he's suggesting as well that's being spent also forces the defense to have to spend money in order to reach all the resources that the feds and the state, but it's all the feds. So think about it. If you're being outspent $10 million to one, how do you expect to actually have fairness? And if evidence and the analysts of the FBI are not going to be required to appear in court, how are you going to challenge this veracity, where state actors are going to be allowed to present summaries of evidence provided by the FBI as evidence and not the underlying raw analysis or data that's needed so you could cross-examine it the correct way and satisfy due process and the confrontation clause? So all that violates BK's rights. And knowing that, I'm just saying, what does it leave someone in BK's position? Just in general. If you know that this is how the judge is going to handle the trial, and you can't get behind that federal firewall, and you're not going to be able to question those individuals because they don't need to appear in court. State actors or state witnesses are just going to rely on summaries, and the judge allows that. And you don't have the ability to actually properly cross-examine that. And the judge is going to limit your cross-examination. So your hands are tied behind your back. Do you risk going to trial and getting a conviction, which I think would have happened, in my opinion, and where you now waived issues of ineffective assistance to counsel, at least at that point, in which the 68 terabyte dump is at issue. Now, it could still exist because what Turvey's pointing out what did BK really know?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is what Turvey's saying. So all these issues ultimately violate your rights. But if Turvey knew it, what did BK know? And if we just take Turvey at his word, then taking the plea was the proper decision. Because why risk it? And I don't know what else he says. I would like, and I apologize. I'm just jumping in, but to face the death penalty is something, all of us probably never experienced, right? I mean, it's so, going to trial is one thing. Yeah, challenge, we could do this. But if you're not getting a fair shake from the judge, who should be actually giving you the benefit of the doubt, but is giving the state prosecutors the benefit of the doubt when it comes to challenging evidence and reliability and all these things. So my opinion, that plea, I would have taken it. That's all.
Yeah, I think anybody would have. Okay, let's see what he says here.
And all that good stuff. So that's the first thing. What I would expect is if Hippler says, I'm going to grant it for you, let's start over. Great, let's get a real death qualified attorney that actually has experience working in death penalty trials. Not somebody who's a dealer, who knows how to make a plea and has maybe worked a couple cases. I mean, somebody who actually knows what they're doing. Because this is a case where now everybody's sort of on the line. The second thing is, if anybody, anybody on the side of the state or the defense has engaged in misconduct, they have opened themselves up to litigation and lawsuits. Yes. I worked on a case in Connecticut. Versus Birch and Henning, the Birch and Henning case. These were was a home invasion where the only evidence in the case was DNA from blood alleged to have been found on a towel. That was the only evidence, all right, in the whole case. And I did the examination of that evidence in the case, and I found that the expert in that case had falsified that item. And that case went all the way to the Supreme Court of Connecticut. That expert was Henry Lee, my mentor. Now, what happened?
Wow.
He got sued personally, and he got sued to the tune of $30 million, and he lost. He refused to show up to defend himself. He knew what he had done. He had dry labbed this result for the police. There was a bunch of other cases that were going on at the same time where the same allegations were being made. But this was back in 2011. So when experts lie, there should be consequences. And in many states there are.
Sure,
when
just
lawyers
like police
lie
or anybody.
versus
Yes,
warrant
absolutely.
there should be consequences. And that's a separate conversation. What I'm concerned about is people have already kind of decided, well, he's guilty, so he's done. He already said he was guilty. Again, 1/3 of defendants who are investigated by the Innocence Project are found to have been wrongfully convicted. 1/3 of them were coerced by their defense attorneys. This is a common concept. Wow. I am so grateful to you as an attorney, as a criminal justice professional, that you and I can meet, regardless of the side that we take, on this very even plane of, hey, we don't do that. We let the client decide. You give them my job is to educate attorneys educate the client, and my job then becomes maybe educate the court, maybe educate the jury, but ultimately there's a trier of fact that's going to come in and make a decision. And we want them to have the best and fullest and most complete set of information that exists. You and I can agree on that without getting mad at each other. That's not the world we live in
Absolutely.
right now. Nobody wants anybody to have a fair shake. Nobody wants anybody to the truth to come out. People decide who the monsters are, and then they go down that road instead of doing the investigation.
It's interesting you say that, because just this last week I did a jury, and it was an attempted murder case, and the client had another lawyer for the first 7 years that his case was pending. And we came in, and I think in about 8 months decided to take the case to trial. And this guy was trying to push this guy to take a deal every which way from Sunday. And we came in and I talked to him about that deal, and I talked to him about why it was less of a risk, because it was much less time than he would serve if he lost. But at the end of the day, he has a right to have his day in court. And we tried that case, and that jury came back in about 4.5 hours with a not guilty. So, you have to be able to, and for clients that say, I did not do this, I am actually innocent, and I want to have my day in court, then they're willing to take a risk.
That's exactly right. If you have somebody who's guilty and they get a good plea deal, they're going to take it, right? And that's the problem.
Yeah.
That sets up a stereotype. And if you apply that stereotype or that caricature of a defendant to Brian Kohberger, you're going to miss all the important information and facts and details underneath the surface that are going on that he has not been talking about. Like I said, he's been a good client as far as I can tell, by virtue of doing what he was told, as well as his family, and keeping their mouths shut.
Talk to me a little bit about the hair that was found
Oh,
in
yeah, we're
each
going to
children's
talk
hand.
about
I
it
know
now.
we talked about this originally.
Oh,
This is
okay.
something
Yeah.
that's gotten a lot of communication online and otherwise, and that the hair did not match Brian Koberger's, but there's some inconclusive facts out there. And again, because the prosecutors really didn't answer and because Koberger didn't really allocute, there's still a lot of questions surrounding that hair. The police are saying it was tested, it wasn't Koberger's, that it was Chapin's himself. Now, is that true, or do we have no idea who that hair belongs to?
Nobody who's under oath is saying that, and no report says that it belongs to Ethan. That is where our
Okay,
world exists. So anybody who's saying these
Yes.
is guessing. They're saying maybe it's him, maybe it's not. Just like Ann Taylor and her team said,
It
what
could
if
be
it has it? What if it belongs to
it's
somebody in the house? Like,
exculpatory
well,
evidence.
maybe it does. We need to find out
We
who that
didn't
is and
know
how it got
about
in his hand, right? Because
Sorry, you were saying?
No, it's exculpatory evidence, and BK doesn't know about it. So that hair and the other hairs that Turvey said in the past, the clump of hair, whatever happened to that? Has it been tested? And, again, the difference between the state and the feds, did the state test it? Did they have the resources, their ISP lab?
Mhm.
That's one thing. But if the feds are testing it and concealing that information because they don't pass it on to the state, that's wrong as well. That's a violation of due process. It's all about fundamental fairness that Turvey's been talking about. But I'm speculating, but I think that's where they're going with this,
Mhm.
is what happened to the rest of the hairs? Do you just ignore it? You're the finest forensic lab in the world, the FBI lab, and they're not using that to test hairs that might exculpate somebody or
Yeah, that is
provide that
strange.
you did do it. You ignore it only because it's exculpatory. That's the only reason you don't bring it in if you're the state. So very troubling.
We were talking about debris in his hands. So I don't know where that comes from.
Yeah, I mean, there's no explanation for it. There's no report on it. Am I right? I don't think there's any breakdown in saying this was analyzed. This is what was determined to be, we found X amount of hairs. We couldn't test them because of this, or we haven't tested them because of this. They degraded. Who knows? But there's no explanation that would assist the defense. Did they do reports? I'm assuming they had to do some sort of reports that would provide that and analyze the hairs, whatever hairs were found. Because Turvey said there was more than one hair. I remember that. A clump of hair, but he talked about specific hairs that he himself saw on pictures, I guess.
I think you do see it in those images. So I have seen it on the images. I just don't like putting the images on.
Yeah, no, that's
screen so
fair.
much. But
That's fair.
yeah, you actually do see it. Now I don't know if it's the same clump of hair that he's referring to, because again, we don't know.
Yeah, so one's in his hand. Okay, 'cause I remember.
You don't see there isn't an actual image from the whole photo dump that's shown in Ethan's hand specifically, so that's not released. But
Okay,
you do see a clump of hair on the floor. So I don't think it's the same one that he's talking about.
okay. Well, there could be, whatever it is. I mean, he's talking about hair in the hand. He talked about bed frame. I remember he talked about a bed frame, right, and how it was moved. I remember that in prior interviews,
Yeah.
and the fact that that bed frame was put into storage, got the whole thing. I mean, that's all very weird. How that's not.
Well, yeah. But look, however they tested, it can't be Brian's hair, right?
Yeah, it can't be because they would have. If it was, they would have said it. And of course,
Because
yeah.
also because he apparently had a mask on, so which would cover his hair.
Well, he committed the unalivings naked,
Oh yeah,
and put on his yeah.
take his mask off as well. Put it back on to scare Dylan. Boom! Here I am.
In case you missed my naked ass, how about I put a ski mask on?
But as he was dressing to go out the house, he put the mask on.
Oh God.
Oh,
This is great.
I can't. Oh. Put the mask on. Boo!
Maybe that vacuum cleaner was something else. Oh my God.
Oh wow. Oh jeez. Oh, I can't. I don't know what they were doing in there, what they were watching, what they into. It's just so weird.
We start to realize how absurd so many things are after you start discussing them and realizing this is so crazy. And Turvey's kind of saying that as well
I
on
know.
every facet, he said. I
Oh
mean, and that's
wow.
what we have from witnesses, Dylan Warren's. Oh my God. Oh, geez.
Jeez.
You're right. That was the state expert saying that he must have been naked running around unalive.
And they'll stick with that story because of those jeans he puts it on. I remember, and I think Ashley Banfield's got a thing for Brian Koberger because she was drooling when she was showing those pictures on her page that time. She's like, oh, yeah, show me that one again. The one where he took off his butt. Acting like nobody's ever taken a selfie of their butt before.
But could you imagine? Let me just say this. I'm sorry, this is killing me. But the jury could have requested the following if the home was still up.
An
They
imprint
could
of
have asked
blind
for a
butt.
reenactment of the state expert who suggested that the unalivings were committed, or at least Brian Koberger was naked, right, in doing these. But if he was naked, how close, if he was, he had a mask on, but just to go through having a naked reenactment and the jury witnessing this, do you see how absurd it would be? I mean, my God, the jury would just laugh. The case would have been, I mean, it just, so there were pressures coming from way higher up for Judge
Oh,
Hippler
wow.
to do, that this is telling me that there was
Maybe
was
that's
much-
why she couldn't identify him. Because I don't think you're allowed to take your pants down in a lineup.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Oh my God!
I don't know where that story came from, but it was there. Oh, Alicia, I've taken off my butt before. Even me, everyone has. If you want to, especially women, when you want to see if you've lost some weight, then you take a picture.
You ladies are incredible. That is, oh my God.
I'll tell you a real story quick. Just off topic before we go on. Don't judge. But this was very long ago. I can say this because I know my family's not watching. I was working and there was a guy at the office, and I said to him, listen, I want you to just take a picture of my butt because I'm trying to lose some weight. And he had it on the phone, and I said, okay, take it again in 2 weeks. So one day my brother was sitting in the office and he was scrolling through the guy's phone and he's like, whose butt is this? I have to know. My brother's like, oh Oh, I love it. I just smack it. Then about 10 years later, I told my brother, I'm like, you know whose butt you were looking at? It was mine. I was so embarrassed. It was
You had to acknowledge it.
It was because he was
Oh.
hounding that guy. Obviously, I was much younger guys, but anyway, he was hounding him. He was like, "Please, you got to tell me whose picture this is."
Oh, that's a
The guy
great
was dropping
story.
hints. He's like, "You've seen it before." Thinking my brother's like, "No, I have no. I've got to meet this girl. This was going on for a long time."
That's-
Oh,
oh my God. That is
kind of like a
hilarious.
family joke now. But anyway,
Yeah.
same with BK. Oh wow.
Oh, but now I think I solved it. Now I solved it. I know how BK committed these atrocities. He not only had one of the weapons or the knife in his mouth, as you pointed out before, but he was naked and had the sheath quenched in between his butt cheeks. And it slipped out because he had a past gas during it. Yeah. Oh.
Yeah. Don't lubricate your butt cheeks, guys. She's gonna fall right out. I'm just trying to hide it in there. I don't know. Oh, poor Brian. Jeez. Oh, I hope his family doesn't see this, but I wish we could have them on.
Oh, Scully would be great. I forgot. Oh, I forgot to mention this when we talked earlier before going live. But Scully is having some problems, some issues.
Oh,
So
shame. Yeah, he's been so
he's,
quiet. What's going on? He's
yeah,
okay?
he said he wanted to take off a little while because I get he's feeling. I guess so. He's. I think he's in a depressive state, or he's getting there. But certainly he's. And he was having problems. I guess he mentioned certain channels, and I've just felt bad, and I was commenting to him that please reach out to us, you know.
Yeah, no,
And,
definitely.
but yeah,
I'll also check in with him.
yeah, please
Um,
do, please do. I think he would love to hear from you. I think that's very important.
I'll reach out to him. I think all of us will shame. Yeah, he does. You know, there are some channels in the community that do get a little bit territorial and go on the attack. And you know, for some people, it does become a bit heavy. You know, and Scuddy's always fun. I really
He's
like
very,
him.
he's great,
He's
and I
great.
think his work. I think because when you could tell Scully is he's very very. It could be emotional if you attack his work, and that could be for all of us for that matter. But I think he takes, and I see the pride. I mean, he puts out a great product. I love the music videos, and the videos he puts out are amazing. So I don't know exactly what happened. I didn't get it. I know there were people who were probably being mean because he mentioned that he doesn't feel that the work he has put in is
Yeah.
showing. So I think someone must have attacked him. That's just my insight. Could be totally wrong, and I apologize, Scully. I don't mean to be talking about this, but something
No, I
happened.
think it's something everybody kind of faces at a point, you know, where yeah, but not only other channels, but even people coming on. It's very heavy, right?
It
That's why I
is.
try and keep it a bit light because it is. I mean, you do get hated. I think a lot of people can relate to this as you question this case or you try and make sense of how ridiculous it is. Um, you do get attacked. And sometimes people get a bit too personal. You know, they will actually insult every part of you.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, I think, but if you could reach out and people in the chat, if you could reach out to him because Yeah, no one deserves any type of. We're all having fun. We're all trying to create content. We all have our ideas, and
Yeah.
it's interesting that no matter what you feel is fair, that's unfair. I mean, we talk about fairness for BK, but the same people are talking about fairness of BK could be unfair to individuals who have a direct attachment, and that's the irony. It's a very ironic that you'll be claiming we want fairness for BK, but it's okay to pick on or harm someone's emotional state, and you're going to be doing that. So
Yeah.
I'm not for that. You
No,
could just
I'll definitely reach out to
that's what-
him. And if you're in the chat, and yeah, I actually do need somebody who's going to moderate the chats for us. So yeah, just get in touch. There is a mail. I'll paste it in the chat. Let's watch here quickly.
Yes.
That would wreck the timeline. Well, let's talk about what does exist, okay? The hair, my first encounter was the hair on the bed frame. And it was like probably 20, 30 strands, about that long, coming off the bed
on
frame.
the bed frame,
attached
see?
in
Okay.
blood on the bed frame with Ethan's, in the
That's a
sort of
lot.
imprint
I
of
mean,
Ethan's
20,
hand.
30 strands. That's a lot. Yeah.
It's
a
way
lot.
more than that. Okay, so but that's what I could see. I can show you the pictures right now if you want to. But the pictures of the hair on the bed frame and that are also attached to the wall is even more.
Whoa.
There's even a bigger clump from what's on the bed frame attached to the wall. When they pulled it away, there's a nice little streak of blood when
So
they pulled it
3
away.
places:
There's hair attached to the
hand,
wall.
bed frame,
and
wall.
sealed to the wall with
Wow.
blood. And it's even more than that amount of hair. Then we have the hair that's in his hand. The phone was taken at the crime scene.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's
so
what I-
there's
yeah.
3 different
That's what he's
photos.
talking about.
So anybody who's being
Wow. There you go. Yeah.
who has not looked at all the evidence and who is speaking on issues that they don't know anything about because they're not a reconstructionist or not a forensic scientist, anybody who's saying that those hairs doesn't exist, it means that they haven't looked at the evidence and aren't aware of what's going on in the case. They viewed the case through their very narrow aperture. I did crime scene analysis and reconstruction, which means my hands were in everything. All right, so those photographs exist, and not only that, they were leaked online. There are people that have put these photographs online and put them into nice collages for everybody to see. So the first hurdle to clear is, do they exist? Yes. Then when the police wrote a report about it, it was described in the autopsy report and the police reports as debris in his hands. There was no
They're
debris in his hands. It was
concealing.
just human hair. All right? A
Got it.
clump of it in
Wow.
his hands, then some
Yeah,
stuck to the bed
that's right.
frame and then some stuck to the wall. That hair was of such significance that they sent it off to the FBI lab, who looked at it under a microscope and said, these hairs do not share similar characteristics.
Oh, wow.
Therefore, there's no DNA testing needed to be done. And Brian Koberger is
What the
excluded.
hell?
These are the facts. These are not Brent Turvey's speculations. This is what exists on the record. Now, have you heard anything about that? Other than through me, no.
Okay, so it's not a match.
It's not a match, and they're only looking for matches now, right? To say anything that doesn't match, because we're not going to give into a alternative perpetrator or other possible perpetrator. That's what the FBI was trying to avoid by what he's describing, and I'm suggesting that's exactly what the FBI was doing. Then they pass on. So the FBI doing that then passes whatever information they feel goes to the state, and the state uses that information to proceed. So he's saying he's seen that. I mean, I don't know if I don't know if that exists in public or not yet, right? And I think he's saying it doesn't, because he's the only one who's saying it. Now, to Cy Ray saying a clump of hair or whatever, that again, I'm not taking anyone's side, but I just want to take a second and parse what Cy Ray said, because obviously Cy Ray didn't have this information either, but all of this helps BK. Now, Cy Ray said debris in his hand. It wasn't debris or clump of hair, but the FBI said it was debris. So debris in his hand is one thing, but as we now find out that there's hand evidence, bed frame evidence, and wall evidence of hair. So, and I don't think, again, I'm not paid that much attention to Cy Ray, but Cy Ray's statement about the debris, that's what he was challenging on, or a clump of hair. Not about the bed frame, not about the wall, which Dr. Turvey clearly had knowledge of, and probably the only one. Interesting. That's very interesting, and I mean, that sounds. If you have wall in all those, I mean, hair in all those three places, that's
Well,
that's
wouldn't that indicates a struggle?
sure suggests that at the very least. But you should have the ability. You being the defense team should have the ability to analyze that hair. That is what is troubling. And what happened? I mean, that's why I'm saying the FBI, if the FBI has those hairs and doesn't give it back, what happens? And that's why I want people to understand, if the FBI doesn't do something voluntarily, the state can't compel the feds to do it.
Sorry,
And
Big Amish, give me a second.
yeah,
There's a guy in the chats who asked Robot Glock, we can't just link them here. It's a huge file. So there's over 2,600 images. And if we verify you, we can send you a link to the images, but I don't think, I mean, it's not hard. You can request them from the Idaho Statesman. Of course, Turvey has seen way more images than what has been released to the public. I managed to download a lot of images, but I'm not going to just paste a link in the chat because these are sensitive images. And unfortunately, you can see
yeah,
part
no,
of victims in the images. So I'm not going to paste them out of respect for the 4 victims. I'm not going to paste them in the chat. Sorry about that.
yes, no, that's exactly right. I agree 100%.
That's why you'll see I don't really put the images. A lot of channels have done that with those graphic images on their thumbnails and showing the images. I understand. I'm not knocking them for doing it, but I personally don't think that we should.
Yeah, I agree not to show them. But if they exist, I'll try and find, if they're publicly available, as he says, they're on the
I
college.
can send them to you. They're on the Discord. So,
Oh,
if you
okay.
want it, but I mean, if people want it for investigative purposes of looking at it like we are, you can look at the image, analyze the image, and comment on it. But you don't even have to show it. I mean, remember, these people have families. So
Yes.
I
Yes.
particularly don't. Yeah, that's just
Amen.
I don't like to show those kind of images too much. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with people because some people have showed images in a tasteful way of certain areas just to get the point across, and I don't mind that. What I'm saying is I'm not pasting a link to over 2,600 images in the chat, unless you want them for a reason. Certain channels that are actually investigating this case, by all means. But I did go and have a look at yours, and I don't think you're investigating the case, so no.
Okay. That's fair. I just want to say the following, that on every opportunity that Ann Taylor and the defense sought to get evidence from the feds directly, saying that's where it is, right? Trying to get that information, it's been stopped by Judge Hippler, right? So if the feds do not want to give evidence up that they may contain and have in their possession, if they don't want to give it to the state, and they've provided a summary of that evidence to the state, Judge Hippler has basically denied every opportunity that Ann Taylor and the defense has tried to obtain that information or challenge it, or at least question it. That's the ultimate due process violation. It also shows another sovereign, the federal sovereign, is in charge and withholding information. And I think that's what Turvey's also suggesting and has suggested as well. Doesn't go into so much because you can't fight something that you're not allowed to look behind it. The judge closed that door because the case would have been over if he would have allowed it. So,
Yeah.
so the feds
Yeah,
do
look, I
not
mean, you
have
guys
to do
can
that.
go and look for the images. 100% you can go and see them. But, you know, just obviously, you know, I think he has a lot more images that were not released.
Yeah. But again, I want people to understand the fact that he's raising it provides BK the right to seek those photos or evidence that Turvey has seen that he hasn't. It opens up the door to discovery, just like Cyray's saying, I've seen pictures placing or the records I put placing BK right in the home. Guess what? We all probably believe it's bullshit, but
Yeah.
it gives BK the right to gain that information, to get behind that federal firewall that Judge Hippler denied Ann Taylor about. That's
Mhm.
the important part that people need to understand, that all of this helps BK at the end of the day to get an evidentiary hearing or to get that evidence, whatever it may be. It allows you to poke the hole and get into the federal backyard. Now, Hippler's on the PCR and he's going to do whatever he can. That's why I said the first step has to be the recusal of Hippler. Then, if we are correct in the analysis that I've provided, we talked about with Wendy, if it provides enough uncomfortableness to the state where they have to then bring in the feds would simply say, drop the case or acknowledge that there was a violation, right? Allow the plea to be vacated. This allows you not to even have an evidentiary hearing and find all the faults that occurred, but agree that there was a violation, the state admitting to a violation of Brady that
Mhm.
keeps the feds safe, right? You don't go behind that curtain. So that's how it gets untangled the quickest way, in my opinion. But you need to create the uncomfortableness. You have to create the groundwork. And this is what Turvey and all of these individuals are doing. They're saying that the Fed actually controlled a lot of the evidence, which we know they did. Created it, manufactured it. It was all done through the federal hand. So once that's exposed, once they know that a judge is going to allow subpoenas to go towards the FBI, and the FBI would challenge it anyway. It's that kind of pressure that's necessary to get justice in the case in order to expose it was the feds all along who identified BK and not the state, that the state was just simply used as a proxy. And their independence, determination of probable cause was all at the direction of the federal
Mhm.
government, the FBI. So that's it. They have to create enough pressure where that's exposed, and then the state will cave in and they will agree to a plea to vacate it. That's my opinion. Or the process will continue, ultimately resolved at the federal level. Sorry, I just had to jump in on that.
No, 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 no. Okay, so the one lady was saying, "Who is your gentleman guest?" Okay, I did link Big Amish's channel in the description, so you can head over to his channel. There's um,
Yep. Thank
some
you. Thank you.
great
Very kind.
content in there.
Thank you all. Now, this is a fascinating interview. So
Yeah.
it's as if he's testifying for the PCR. I mean, you couldn't ask for more than what he's saying.
So
It's
the
perfect.
question here is: it seems this guy says the three photos exist on the internet.
Okay.
But no, they don't. I think those three photos that he's talking about are not photos that are available to the public.
Oh, I don't know about that. So
No, I haven't seen those. So he could be, because there are a lot more photos that were not released to us. So okay, let's play.
No one wants to talk about it. Why? Because it would upend the case. It would upend everything. It would change everything we think about the timeline, the narrative, the interaction, who was in what room. But there's other evidence. There's down in the first floor bedroom, we have the jacket that didn't get collected or tested properly. We have a bloody bracelet that was on the floor that got picked up and moved by police and put on one of the desks and ignored and not collected.
Oh my God,
We
that's
have
right.
many different items of evidence like that weren't exactly examined or considered in the timeline because they got lost or forgotten or just plain ignored because they didn't fit the narrative. I come back to the same thing every time. When you want to know what happened, you examine the evidence. When you want to know what the truth is, you pursue that evidence to find out whose it is, how it got there, conditions of transfer, and what that means for the entirety of the reconstruction of the case. And there's not a real interest in doing that. In fact, they were so disinterested in doing that they demolished the house. I never even heard of that before. They demolished the house.
I know, me neither.
And then they created
Oh
this
my
3D
God! So he
model of it
tied it in
that I went out
perfectly.
again to examine
Oh
and
my
took
God.
photographs and did a 3D scan of it.
All the
It
faults
doesn't
of
even
the
match the interior of the
collection of
house.
evidence.
It's full of incorrect access, incorrect sizes. It says big sign under, not to scale. They wanted to use it as a trial exhibit. Didn't have anything in it. Didn't have anything to do with the case. Just an approximation of maybe what the house might have looked like inside. We're not sure.
I'm going to say that I feel like no matter which way you fall on this, right? Whether you think Brian Kohlberger did it, whether you think he didn't do it, no matter what you think, I think everyone that's paid attention to this case has always wanted to see a trial here, because a trial was either going to expose that there was or there wasn't enough evidence, and a trial
getting
could
the public
potentially
ready. It's
answer
getting
the question
vacated.
why
He's gonna
or
get
how.
vacated.
And so no matter how you feel about this, no one got those answers. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see what Judge Hippler does and see if we ever get those answers. But no matter what happens, I'm sure, Dr. Turvey, I will want to talk to you about it. So I hope you'll be back with me, and I thank you so much.
Wow.
Thank you for
Even
joining me for another
that
episode
conclusion
of
says
Crime
it
and
all.
Justice.
Yeah,
Remember,
just
we
go
Everyone
back
want
to
to hear
that
from
trial.
you.
I just want to play that part quickly again, what he said there.
Interested in doing that. In fact, they were so disinterested in doing that they demolished the house. I never even heard of that before, where
Yeah.
you demolished the house.
I
So
know,
that's-
me neither.
And then they created this 3D model of it that I went out again to examine and took my photographs and did a 3D scan of it. It doesn't even match the interior of the house. It's full of incorrect access, incorrect sizes. It says big sign under, not to scale. They wanted to use it as a trial exhibit. Didn't have anything in it. Didn't have anything to do with the case. Just an approximation of maybe what the house might have looked like inside. We're not sure.
I'm going to say that I feel like no matter which way you fall on this, right? Whether you think Brian Kohlberger did it, whether you think he didn't do it, no matter what you think, I think everyone that's paid attention to this case has always wanted to see a trial here, because a trial was either going to expose that there was or there wasn't enough evidence, and a trial could potentially answer the question why or how. And so no matter how you feel about this, no one got those answers. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see what Judge Hippler does and see if we ever get those answers. But no matter what happens, I'm sure, Dr. Turvey, I will want to talk to you about it. So I hope you'll be back with me, and I thank you so much. Thank you for joining me for another episode of Crime and Justice. Remember, we want to hear from
That was
you.
well said.
Send us your thoughts,
But a fair
questions, or
trial,
theories,
a
and
fair
we'll answer
trial
them
is what
on
we
air.
Not just the trial, because
What are
that was
your
already
thoughts? Do you think this is going to go to trial?
well, I believe I believe there's going to be a vacate of the plea, right? The plea's going to get vacated.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens thereafter is going to be another round. Is the state going to invest? Because we've been hearing a lot about money. So they've been planting seeds. I'm just thinking of the narrative. Why the state of Idaho may not want to proceed. Maybe the feds will jump in. Right.
Yeah.
So if there's a federal charge, that there's been a sealed federal indictment, or they just issue a charge now. But I believe it already exists. They could proceed in the trial and they could come to a conclusion somehow. I really don't think we're going to ever see a trial. I think there's a lot more than meets the eye involving Brian Kohlberger and what his true role in this whole situation was. And it wasn't as a perpetrator. But And I believe the case gets resolved once it's in the federal hands, once it's in a federal court and you have the DOJ involved.
Mhm.
So they can resolve their differences however they want to. And that's how I think it's going to get resolved at the end of the day. Either the charges are all going to get dropped, but it's not going to, it doesn't, people want answers. So you're going to see the first part of it, right? People want answers. You heard the G's talk about how the feds might want to get involved.
Yeah.
So we know that
We've
aspect.
even heard Nancy say how the feds might want to get involved several times.
And that's always, and that's how it works typically. So if the state court is unable to get a conviction, the feds are always waiting behind to, with cases like this where they're actually involved, to then go and prosecute the case. So it's kind of like getting two bites at the apple, so to speak, but they're going to use the federal law to bring their charges. So there's a lot of moving parts here. So we'll take it step by step, but that's how it ultimately.
We're going to talk about his role quickly before we sign off. We've got a few minutes if anybody wants to ask questions. But well, like you said, you're going to bring that up in a future video. But if his role in all of this,
his role, to me, he was a federal asset, and he was there for a reason. Now, did he take a detour? Did he abuse his, in my opinion, his federal status that he had access to? And did he become something else? I can't tell you that off the top of my head. I don't believe that, but is that a possibility? Sure. But I do believe he was a federal asset and that he had a top secret security clearance, and they knew about him back in 2021. He already
would he know that they knew about him when you say that?
Because he was part. Yes, because he gave. I mean, don't forget to qualify to become when I say federal asset, he was to get a top secret security clearance and have access to these things. He'd have to go through a background check, psychological testing, and fingerprints. So he was in the FBI system in 2021. That's just my opinion. I think I have receipts for at least making a plausible claim to that and how it works and why. And I'm not just talking about the Pullman PD position.
No. That's small town.
Yeah, but the embedding in it. So he would be, in a way, like a joint task force officer that we talked about, how they act as a federal gatekeeper. You give the state certain information, but you're not going to provide what information you're getting in from whom on the FBI side. So, but yes, the Pullman provided CERN, he's going to have access to CERN information and be used that as a embedded officer within local PD, just like the Joint Task Force officers. But I believe, sufficient evidence to conclude that he had a top secret security clearance and had another, a higher role than that. But by having...
Here's a question. If he had that, sorry to interrupt you, would his family know about that? Would they be aware of that?
I don't, well, to let them know that he's going to be involved in this, potentially no, because, I mean, could he have? Yes. Would it be a violation? I think it would, because his family should not know unless he was given permission to do that. And maybe the family members would have an NDA as well. But I don't think he would do that and expose them. He may have given them clues, because to say that he's a federal asset, it raises other questions than who else, and he might be jeopardizing other people's potential safety or exposing an operation.
Here goes the chat, Big Amish. You can't even with these people.
You can't.
Oh, you did. You
Yeah.
did too.
Yeah, it's but I just so that's one thing. But I also have come to a conclusion about the G's. And after our show yesterday and talking about the notice of claim for the University of Idaho, it's suggesting the G's and their motive and potentially have settled the claim with the University of Idaho before, way before, and it helps keep information also under the radar. If you notice, he never talks about Scott Green or the University of Idaho in any negative sense, does he? Has he
No,
picked on the University of Idaho at all? The
no,
police?
no, no,
Yeah,
no, no, no. That would be a crime.
yeah,
Not the university. Everything
yes,
except the universities. He's picked on everything except the university and except the owners of the properties.
yes.
Hmm.
Oh,
That's off
100%.
limits. So there's there's certain topics that are completely off limits.
Yes, and I did come across some interesting, and I don't believe in coincidental, but I'll call it coincidental, but information yesterday. And I wanted to talk to you before, before we went on the show, but I won't say it. But 1122 has another significance, and it raises issues that you, Wendy, have brought up,
Mhm.
that this may have been a ritual of some sort.
Oh no, I
Oh,
believe it
and
was.
yeah, and it all ties in with the University of Idaho as well. Um, and and I was putting something together, like, wow, let me just put this out there and see what kind of feedback. I didn't put it out yet, the video. I just quickly started putting together a small one on just this issue, and it's in regard to the numbers 1122
Yeah,
and
so if you
something else.
look, just to also, they were killed at the house number 1122. When you add that up and divide it, it comes to 6. And on the 11th of the 13th also equals 6. And then you look at 6 people in the house. So it's said to have been murdered, what is it, 420, more or less.
Right.
So
Yeah,
if
no.
you look at, there were 2 survivors and 4 who were murdered, it comes to the number 1122. So an 11 equals 2 and 22 equals 4. And then you look at his arrest. He was arrested on the 12th, the 30th of the 12th. That also equals 6. So you keep seeing patterns.
Yeah, the patterns. Absolutely, you do. And you know a lot more of it than me. But I connect this numerology directly with the University of Idaho.
Mhm.
So that's what I
Fraternities
have.
as well. The fraternities, um, the not only the university but law enforcement. There's a lot. You can actually tie it to so many things in this case. You can even tie it to um, the victims' dates of birth and how many years they lived in total. I think it was 86 years. I don't have it in front of me, but you know, it also it'll come to the same thing. So yeah, very ritualistic.
Yep. And what I put when I put this out, because um, it'll show, at least it'll question how the university and why it has this connection to 1122.
Hmm.
Um, Different than what we talked about. It's something that just hit me. And I'm not trying to hold out on it. It's just I could be totally wrong on it, but I want it a little suspenseful because I found it so troubling that it couldn't be coincidental, in my opinion. and how the university was involved in this somehow, in some way, either post or post act, the what occurred um, at the residence, post or after, but
Mhm.
clearly it's involved somehow and has, in my opinion, some liability, and
Yeah.
why Steve G may have actually settled a case with the university because of it. So
Yeah.
that's my take on it, and that'll be coming
If
out
you, if
not
you
that long.
start looking at the kinds of um, magic that is used, you know, I won't get into it too much now, but they would have had to, they wouldn't have been relied if this was a cult running this whole thing. And remember, cult is not, what people perceive it to be. It could be any of these characters that we're seeing, right?
Yes,
Then there has to be a blood sacrifice. And they wouldn't have been able to use any kind of Greek magic because that's very mathematically based. Also,
you need to
the,
please
the
the
city
gods.
of Idaho would have to fall under more of a combination. They would have had to use Germanic. And then when you look at all the victims and the survivors and Brian, they're all from Germanic descent. So this is also how the victims were selected. That was very interesting to me
Wow.
because they would have known. Remember, if anybody from any other racial group had committed this crime, there would not be so much public outrage. So think about it.
Good point.
There
Good
wouldn't
point.
be. It would have just been one bad guy, put him behind bars, lock him up. We don't ever want to see his face. But look at the resemblance because they all come from European, Scandinavian countries. They're all from Germanic descent. In fact, the name Koberger is also from Germanic descent. So is Mortensen. So is a lot of them. So that
Oh,
that creates maximum impact.
it always seems that individuals who are trying to get somewhere, there's always a sacrifice. And what was
Mhm.
really behind here? It suggests, I mean, I certainly can't discount what you're saying. I have to actually explore it. And after what I saw, I'm now, that's part of my research in exposing is this connection. But where it leads,
So your research in that, remember, you could have a perfectly legal situation going on, but those people could be part of a cult.
yeah,
And the
yeah,
thing about people that are part of a cult is some of them don't even realize that they are part of the cult. So because they're conditioned to be part of it.
wow,
So it's not, some people actually will go into the occult voluntarily, but other people, that you just need to open the door for them. And there's often like a little temptation for them. And before they know it, they're part of it and they don't even realize. So when I say that, I don't want people to think of all these people meeting around pentagrams and candles and all that
doesn't
weird
have
stuff.
to be
No,
that way.
no, 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 that would be crazy. Modern day cults are way different. And I think, but they worship the same deities, basically. I mean, look at Greek life. Look at look at those guys. You want to tell me those guys are not demonic?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it raises
Um,
you could blame it on the change in society, but I think those are valid points.
I just saw uh, Katie said Katie's not Germanic. No, no, she's not German. Just if you look at the bloodlines that go down, right, they all come from the same European descent. Okay, so they would fall under a broad category of Germanic, just in terms of all the bloodlines. I'm not saying that she's Germanic, but if you just look at all of their past, where they come from, so it's not German, but they. But maybe you have a point there. I don't know with Kaylee. I haven't gone too deep into this, so you could be right. But I mean, yeah, the whole look at how, I mean, if you look at the fraternities, right? They even have a book that says if there's a crime, you report it to the fraternity first. You don't even call the cops.
Yeah.
So if anyone would just verify that for me. I mean, they don't report anything. They're not even allowed to report it to their family. They've got to go straight to oh wow, I think I talked about this long ago. I don't know, but I think Kelly could know a lot about this as well. Kelly's also very familiar with this.
Wow. Okay. Oh, now she's.
So, Sophie, you're right. When you talk about the area knights, there's a term called narco cultism. And basically, when you have somebody like the area knights that team up with a cult boss, then you've got pretty much the most violent enforcers of the law, because the cult provides them with the protection that they need in order to carry out whatever they want to do without any consequences. So go look up that term. It's called narco cultism. I don't have notes in front of me, and my
It's a
brain's
good
like a bit
term.
stiff. Yeah, it's called. Let me check here as well. Uh, uh, let me look here before we cut off. So what it is. Oh, I tapped it wrong. Sorry. I just want to get a. Sorry.
It's
Um,
okay. Take your
so
time.
let me read it for you quickly because I don't have my notes here. So, narco cultism refers to the blend of religious or occult practices, folk saints, and rituals adopted by organized crime figures and drug cartels seeking supernatural protection, power, and impunity in high risk criminal enterprises. Okay.
Hmm.
I'm just reading it here as I brought it up. So they
That
talk
sounds
about
right.
syncre- syncretism. Sorry, my eyes are also bad. And dark magic. Some factions merge elements of traditional faiths with syncretic beliefs, systems like Centerio or Palo Mayombe, utilizing rituals or protective charms before carrying out violent operations. And it just goes on and on. So if you want to go and look up that term, uh, then that's going to explain the area knights and how they are protected.
Because everyone, yeah. How is that's a valid point? Because
Yeah.
who's protecting them, or
Well,
people
of course, because they have to be protected, and so everyone go
to
look it up.
exist,
We can
right?
also do a video on that because it's quite interesting. They receive a lot of protection.
Because they started off in a jail, a prison gang in jail. But yeah,
Mhm.
how could it not be dismantled? Because if it's truly about justice, you would be able to find these individuals. But why do instead of it being we see on its face the narrative, oh well, Josh Hurwitz took down, the head of the Aryan Knights and did put away Aryan Knight members. Let's not discount that. However, is it just theater? So you think the Aryan Knights have been basically torn down or gutted when in fact they're probably stronger than ever because what we're shown on the public, to the public's face, is one thing. What's actually going behind closed doors, or behind the curtain as well, is who's really controlling them and who's protecting them,
Yeah.
right? Because if the government wanted to take them down, just like we take down governments, unfortunately, that should not be the case. But if we could take down foreign nations, we can't take down the Aryan Knights. Come on, if we really wanted to. So you're absolutely right, Wendy. In my opinion, you're absolutely right.
Yeah, they've got a lot of protection, and you have to ask why. And that's why this could very well be a sympathy ritual killing. And when you say sympathy ritual killing, it's not sympathetic. It's something bad happening in the town, and they don't want you to know about it. And they decide, well, in order to purge the town, we have to offer a blood sacrifice to our gods to distract from what's really going on in the town. And we're going to create this diversion. I don't know. I could be wrong. I could be wrong. It's just a theory.
Well, blood sacrifice has been around a long time. So
Yeah.
it's very interesting that you bring it up.
And when you look at, we kind of went quickly off subject, but you know, the thing is, look at the way they chose these victims. I mean, there would have had to be some warning before. And I think that's where this whole stalking narrative came in. Because the fact is, those girls did say somebody was stalking them. They reported it to the guy at the vape shop. Do you remember that?
Yes. Yep. Yeah, and he said, and he gave, it was like a few weeks before it happened. He said Kaylee had come in there, or Maddie, right? But maybe both of them. I forgot what he said, but it said it happened a few weeks before the atrocities occurred.
Yeah.
Well, all these, I mean, and it's, you could argue all of this is by design, because it's never intended for us to figure it out, us being the public. We have so many
part
questions.
of that, I think, is you know, whenever they do this kind of thing, they do it to confuse you,
Yep.
and
Muddy the
also
water.
they do it right in your face.
Yeah. And if you try and challenge it, say, I know what this is, then you turn out to be a conspiracy theorist.
Well, you're crazy. I mean, if you talk about a cult, I've seen this a lot of times. If you try and talk to anybody about something that they can't see or they don't really believe in, then you're wild and you're just crazy.
Yeah. No, it's an
You're
effective
mad.
tool.
You're mad. You're making this up. You're just as bad as Brian Koberger running through the house with his bare butts.
With the sheath clenched between his butt cheeks.
I saw somebody somebody made a meme of I don't think I can put it on the screen. Hold on, let me see if I can. This is quite funny before we end off. Let me see if I can save this.
Maybe it was the sweat of his butt cheeks that diluted the blood.
No, I can't find the screen grab now. Sorry, guys. But yeah, that's probably how you drop the knife sheath. Anybody got any other theories? Please, there must be one. It's in Pride on a happy note.
Yes.
Wow. Who else thinks Brian was running through there naked?
Excuse me a second. I was just coughing after that, choking after that laugh. There was one in the chat. It's Robot Glock. He had an interesting. He says the judge should have been asking for the knife or other
Yeah.
corroboration as much as a test if the prosecution is legit, as BK is telling the truth. That's our system of checks and balances. Now, that is true. That's how it's supposed to work, right? But the checks and balances, who's doing the checks and balances? It's supposed to be Hitler, but he
Yes.
himself, who is doing the checks and balances of him during the accepting of the plea? Because he knew, oh my God, my throat.
Mute your microphone and cough.
Oh my God, my throat. Yeah. The wow. So he knew that Ann Taylor was feigning. Wow. I'm sorry, guys. My voice is all changing right now.
See, you guys made Big Amish choke. We'll give him a break. He can go and cough quickly.
Wow. I got to stop talking. We gotta stop about so Judge Hippler knew. I think we could all agree that Judge Hippler knew that the truth was not there when Ann Taylor stated that she's been effective counsel, that she had all the discovery necessary.
Mhm.
And the same thing applied to BK, that he believed that his attorney was effective and that he's received everything, I guess, and discovery that he needed to make this plea determination. We know that's all fake. He knew that it was fake because of what Steve G has said about the plea negotiations being pushed by Hitler, and that what Bill Thompson said, that was the reason he would lie. And that's the reason why he didn't allocute, because he would be giving self-serving statements. Well, so you know that the structure of the plea, the truth, as Robot Glock explicitly stated and correctly 100% stated, it is the truth that was being concealed when Judge Hippler accepted the plea, because he knew it was false and he himself was conflicted. So that's the problem, is that the checks and balances only occur regarding Hippler after the fact. So now we're in the PCR,
Wow.
but he's still there. So we got to recuse him. To get the truth, you got to recuse him.
Yeah. Wow. Well, there's a chance that he might recuse himself, isn't there?
Yes, there's always a chance. And I think they're also weighing, before he does that, maybe he wants to save face. And that's why I suggested that if the state agrees that there was a Brady violation, you could stipulate, you by agreement, you could vacate the plea. And basically, Judge Hippler then gives the he gives another facial expression of being astounded by the revelation. The state hid evidence. There's gambling going on. It's basically the same. It's the same thing. He's shocked. He would be shocked, but it allows him a way out and looks good. It doesn't impact his legacy, right? And it allows the state to fall on its sword and allows Ann Taylor to get her integrity back. All right. Based on what's, not that she needs to me, I think she's done a great job and she has to do whatever she needs to do to protect her client and to vacate the plea. So that's very rare you see it, but it does happen, and it's not a new formula. So she's willing to do that. And there's been an attorney who actually forgot his name, but who actually said he will not go forward in the case, and the judge was compelling him to do it. It was a court order, and the judge sent them to jail for not complying
Wow.
with his order, because the client would be harmed potentially. That was the excuse for the judge. Well, your client is ready to go to trial, and so the judge has certain powers, and they abuse their powers. No one's perfect. But just because the judge wears robes doesn't mean he doesn't have warts. And
Exactly.
So that's what we've seen. So that's the kind of pressure I'm just saying that Ann Taylor was under. And it's interesting that Turvey said she was fired. I can't help but think that happened right before the plea. I just can't, in my mind, I just can't help it. It's just saying, wow, I wish there was a way we could get that information. But it just raises that question. Because then it just destroys everything. Oh my God. But it's like it's the perfect plan, because you can't argue that there was fairness in accepting the plea, that the plea structure itself was complete of due process. Not, it's impossible. On everything we're hearing and seeing, it's just impossible. From the defense side to the state side and to the judge side, all of them have problems. State, dumping, withholding evidence because of the Fed firewall, the judge wearing two hats, being in the investigation that we know now concluded prior to the plea. BK doesn't know about it. The judge could have asked him, about the report. Didn't do that. The outcome of it, and you're willing to waive it. He could
And
have
it's
asked
because
that.
we know that he didn't know anything about this.
Yeah. No, absolutely not. And the judge could have required BK to allocute, or at least tell us where the knife is. But he knew he can't ask that question. And everyone could speculate why. Is it because of knowing falsities? Okay, at the very least, we know that the judge knew BK and Ann Taylor were giving feigned, truthful responses. That's at the very least. And you have a conflicted judge. So why wouldn't he ask, if you were true and if you were seeking justice and you wanted to protect the plea, you would ask for an allocute. You would ask where that knife is, or give some testimony that actually satisfies due process, that we all could base it on reasonable doubt and exclude it. That if you could tell us certain things that happened during that crime, that we all feel comfortable that you did it. And he didn't do that. The judge didn't require that.
Yeah.
That's the
Well,
problem.
everyone, thank you, Big Amish. I have to quickly run out.
Yes,
And
absolutely. Thank
you
you.
for joining us. We will be back, of course.
Thank you, everyone.
Head over to Big
Enjoyed it.
Amish's channel. We had a great laugh though.
Yes, that was a lot. The clenching of the sheath with his butt cheeks. We got to create a meme, and I
And
hope
the mask.
Scully
And the
can make. Yes.
And the mask.
Yes, and the mask. Yes. Oh my God. Yes. Oh.
Oh
Well,
wow, I'm just going in with that mask only. I don't think we started that story, but
that was
hi
great.
Bubbly, how are you? Yeah. I agree about that with Siren. But yeah, thank you everyone. Appreciate it.
Thank you
So
for
we're
being
gonna
a
thank you.
gracious host and full of insight. And thank you again.
Thank you for
Thank you,
your
Wendy.
insight. You
Thanks, everyone.
great guest, Big Amish. I really appreciate you. And everyone, I hope you all have a wonderful weekend. And yeah, we'll see you soon.
Yep. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.